quite a brisk amount of business for the senators today. And in the motions, we have the first and second progress reports of the ad hoc committee of COVID-19 situation in Kenya. And this is a report that is going to be brought by the chairperson of the ad hoc committee. Indeed, it was a resumption of debate. It will be a resumption of debate that was interrupted on Tuesday, 14th, 2020. The other motion is the report of the mediation committee on the county government's amendment bill, Senate Bills number 11 of 2017. And according to the motion, the Senate adopts the report of the mediation committee on the county government's amendment bill, Senate Bills number 11 of 2017, laid on the table of the Senate on Tuesday, 31st March 2020, and pursuant to Article 113 of the Constitution and Standing Order 161 Clause 3 of the Senate Standing Orders to approve the mediated version of the bill. Of course, the motion is going to be tabled by the chairperson of the mediation committee. Order number 10 will be the motion report of the mediation committee on the county government's amendment bill, number 2, bill, Senate Bills number 7 of 2017. It is also going to be brought before the floor of the House by the chairperson, mediation committee. In relation to bills, the Fishery Management and Development Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 22 of 2019, by Senator Moses Kajwang of Homa Bay, will go through the second reading, and of course this will be the resumption of debate that was interrupted on Wednesday, 19th February 2020, due to division. The other business before the House will be the Lifestyle Audit number 2 bill, Senate Bills number 21 of 2019, brought before the House by Senator Faria Ali Haji. Of course, this will be the second reading as well. It is also the resumption of debate that was interrupted on Wednesday, 11th March 2020, due to division. The other business before the House will be the National Drought Management Authority Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bills number 26 of 2019. Of course, this will be the second reading, and it will be brought before the House by the Senate Majority Leader. In relation to notices, there are quite a number, and a maximum of 3 hours will not more than not more than 20 minutes for the mover, 20 minutes for the majority party official responder, 20 minutes for the minority party official responder, and 15 minutes for each other. Indeed, the Senate resolved on 18th of February 2020 to carry out the business of the House in relation to the maximum of hours that the debate of a motion not sponsored by the majority or minority party of a committee shall be limited to a maximum of 3 hours, with not more than 20 minutes for the mover, 20 minutes for the majority party official responder, 20 minutes for the minority party official responder, and 15 minutes for each other. In relation to the papers, the first half county government's budget implementation review report for financial year 2019-2020. The other paper will be the public health COVID-19 restriction of movement of persons and related measures rules 2020. The other one will be the public health prevention, control, and suppression of COVID-19 rules 2020. This, of course, will be by the majority the Senate Majority Leader. As you can see, the Speaker is already in the House. We can only wish you good viewing, and of course, this is brought to you by the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit in conjunction with KBC. We wish you the best of viewing.
Let us pray. Almighty God, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor and blessings. As your servants whom you have been pleased to call to leadership positions in this republic, we seek guidance to treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests you have committed to our charge. Amen.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair.
Honorable Senators, you recall that on 31st March 2020, the Senator for Kericho County, Senator Aaron Cheriot, MP, rose on a point of order on the rounding up of parliamentary staff who had returned back to the country from official engagement abroad and had completed 14 days of self-quarantine. The Senator informed the House that persons allegedly from the multi-agency team from the Office of the President had picked some staff of Parliament for a mandatory quarantine at a government facility. The intervention of the House to have the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and Coordination of National Government and the Cabinet Secretary for Health clarify on the number of teams coordinating the COVID-19 in the country and on the harassment of staff of Parliament who had completed 14 days of self-quarantine. Several senators spoke on the support of the point of order. Thereafter, I directed the 2 Cabinet Secretaries to present a report to my office on the teams that are mandated to fight coronavirus. Honorable Senators, during the sitting of the Senate on Tuesday, 14th April 2020, the Senator for Vihiga County, Senator George Haniri, rose on a point of order, wanting to know the outcome of my directive to the said Cabinet Secretaries. Honorable Senators, the 2 Cabinet Secretaries indeed filed a report to my office within the directed timelines. The Cabinet Secretary for Health indicated that the ministry has been responding to the COVID-19 pandemic in line with the Public Health Act and the Health Act, as well as the following guidelines by the World Health Organization. Further, the Cabinet Secretary indicated that upon evaluation of the initial directive by the Minister of Health on self-quarantine of those who arrived in the country, it was established that there were individuals who did not adhere to the self-quarantine guidelines. As such, the multi-agency task force team found it necessary to identify and enforce mandatory quarantine for persons who did not strictly follow the quarantine guidelines. He further stated that this action was appropriate and in line with the provisions of the Public Health Act, as well as the set guidelines to safeguard the lives of Kenyans. Honorable Senators, the 2 letters have been forwarded to the Ad hoc Committee on COVID-19 situation in Kenya for consideration. The committee will be updating the House on these issues and other related concerns in its progress report as appropriate. The House is now informed accordingly. I thank you. Next order.
Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I wish to lay the following papers on the table of the Senate today, Tuesday, 21st April 2020. Number one, the first half county government budget implementation review report for financial year 2019-2020. Number two, the public health COVID-19 restriction of the movement of persons and related measures rules 2020. C, the public health declaration of formidable epidemic disease, order 2020. And finally, the public health prevention, control, and suppression of COVID-19 rules 2020. I thank you.
Honorable Senators, the Cabinet Secretary for Health published the following statutory instruments to address COVID-19 pandemic. One, the public health COVID-19 restrictions of movement of persons and related measures, rules 2020. Two, the public health declaration of formidable epidemic disease, order 2020. And three, the public health prevention, control, and suppression of COVID-19 rules 2020. These rules have now been tabled before the Senate pursuant to Section 11 of the Statutory Instruments Act. In this regard, I direct that the rules be committed to the Standing Committee on Justice, Legal Affairs, and Human Rights for consideration pursuant to Section 12 of the Statutory Instruments Act. The committee in this particular instance shall perform the functions of the Sessional Committee on Delegated Legislation as provided under Standing Order 221. I thank you. Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion. Order number 7, statements.
Senator Wetangula, I can see Wambua is still.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish to request for a statement on the World Bank funds to improve the production of specialty coffee in the country. And I'm happy, Mr. Speaker, to see the senators of Kakamega, Kisii, Trans Nzoia, and other areas that grow coffee. Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 48.1, I rise to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Agriculture, Livestock, and Fisheries regarding the World Bank funds to improve the production of specialty coffee in the country. In the statement, Mr. Speaker, the committee should, 1, explain the criteria the Minister for Agriculture has used in determining that these funds be allocated to the counties of Murang'a, Kiambu, Meru, Tharaka Nithi, Machakos, Kirinyaga, and Nyeri at the exclusion of other coffee-growing counties. Indicate when the other coffee-growing counties such as Bungoma, Kakamega, Vihiga, Kisii, Nyamira, and Trans Nzoia will receive the funds and the rationale for excluding them in the first allocation in the first place. State the extent to which county governments have been involved in the process, given that agriculture is one of the devolved functions. Explain the method and parameters that will be used to measure the proper utilization of these funds. Mr. Speaker, I seek this statement with a lot of concern because this country knows that coffee has always been grown in the central part of Kenya and the western region of Kenya. Bungoma, Trans Nzoia, Kakamega, Kisii, Vihiga. And of late, Mr. Speaker, I'm aware the current governor of West Pokot is planting a lot of coffee. Why would the minister take resources given to the government and lump it in one region to the exclusion of all other regions that grow coffee? This is what not the Constitution 2010 expected this country to have, because we desire and demand equitable distribution of resources and opportunities to all people of Kenya, regardless. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Cheruiyot. Then Senator Malala.
Thank you,
Will
Mr.
you
Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is a very important matter that the distinguished senator for Bungoma brings to this House. Mr. Speaker, I wish to remind him that he needs to add counties like Kericho as coffee growing areas as well. Though we are well known for tea, coffee comes in a close second, and large chunk of the population grows this particular fund. You will recall, Mr. Speaker, that last week when we were debating division of revenue, I brought it to the attention of the House that if we do not check the operations of Treasury through these mitigation projects and all these funds that do not bypass the checks and balances that Parliament bring, all these conditional grants and loans and those kind of projects, we will end up practicing marginalization and exclusion that brought us to the pressings of violence in the years that preceded the 2010 Constitution, Mr. Speaker. This is a very important question which I want to request, Mr. Speaker, that the responsible committee does seize this matter, but also take an opportunity to invite those of us who have interest and are representatives of coffee farmers to join that committee on the day that the ministry will come to respond, because I'd wish to know why the people that I represent, who are in no sense less of taxpayers than those regions that are continuing to be favored, whether it is building up new modern hospitals for them, receiving, I don't know what additional funds. We hear major highways being done. The rest of the country is watching in anguish and wondering, what do we have to do for us to enjoy as the rest of as certain parts of the country are enjoying? So, Mr. Speaker, that's my humble plea and addition to the question by Senator Moses Wetangula.
Finally, on that, Senator Malala, then we'll have another statement because of the
Mr.
time
Speaker,
constraints.
This is a disturbing matter, Mr. Speaker, considering that the amount of money that we are addressing here is 1.6 billion Kenya shillings. Mr. Speaker, Article 10(2) of the Constitution is very clear and describes what the national values and principles of governance entail. Mr. Speaker, equity and equalization is key in exercising any form of governance in Kenya, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is sad to realize that a colossal amount of 1.6 billion Kenya shillings was given to the government of Kenya, and that money was taken to one part of this country. This country consists of 8 regions and 43 tribes, Mr. Speaker, and therefore equity in distribution of resources is mandatory. I want to thank the Senator for Bungoma for coming up with this matter, Mr. Speaker, and I would like the concerned committee, Mr. Speaker, to take this matter seriously, because we want to get to the end of this matter, and we want equity and justice to be practiced when this matter will be heard, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my proposal to the committee eventually will be that anytime we consider the division of revenue bill in this House, Mr. Speaker, let the executive disclose all the grants that they are getting, and let us distribute the grants and pass it in the division of revenue bill so that we know how much money goes to Nakuru County, how much money goes to Kakamega County, how much money goes to Kisii County. And therefore, we shall not be allowing and giving the executive the discretion of choosing where the donor funds should be directed to. Thank you.
With that said, you're the final one. I know Senator Ongeri's county was mentioned, so I'll give you an opportunity on that.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Obviously, this is a very worrisome event, that there are certain geographical locations in this country that can only grow certain elements or certain cash crops, those in the highlands and the other areas. And coffee happens to be one such crop that can be grown everywhere in these areas that have been mentioned in the western region. Kericho, Kisii, Kakamega, all those areas, Bungoma, and the other places that have been left out. So when you hear that a fund which is supposed to help the farmers to be able to stay afloat, particularly in this moment of COVID-19 disaster, and that fund is only being distributed to favorite counties, that's unacceptable. We all accept the principle of equity. we all accept the principle that resources must be equitably shared with all counties. I would like to see, for instance, in Kisii and in Nyamira, we grow a lot of coffee. And we are, in fact, one of the pioneers of coffee growing in this country. And to see that we have not been catered for in these resources, to say the least, is very discriminatory. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I will urge the committee that is seized of this matter to carefully study this matter, invite the minister in charge of agriculture to explain why that action has been taken at the total exclusion of all other counties, and be able to take remedial measures in order to ensure that these other counties receive also their share of the resources that are allocated to these other counties. Thank you.
I'm sure the committee has heard. The next statement, yes, Senator Wetangula.
Mr. Speaker, from what the minister said, he's in the process of disbursing this fund to the favored counties. I would want to request that you direct that the committee seized with this matter be able to interrogate this matter as quickly as is practically possible to arrest this situation that is going to exclude counties that have traditionally grown coffee and continue to grow coffee and are being discriminated probably because of their geographical location or whatever it is that the ministry is doing.
Is the chairman agriculture here? Deputy? But I direct that they hold a meeting, a quick meeting with the Minister for Agriculture and give us a report next Tuesday when we convene. Next statement is from Senator Wambua.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 47.1, I rise to make a statement on an issue of national concern, namely the implementation of the restriction of movement of persons and related measures in and out of the Nairobi metropolitan area, as contained in legal notices number 50 and 51 of April 6, 2020, by the Cabinet Secretary for Health. The Speaker, sir, I would wish to start by commending the government for its effort to contain the COVID-19 disease menace that has afflicted our country. I further reiterate my support for the order for the restriction of movement of persons and related measures in and out of the Nairobi metropolitan area as announced by the President on the advice of the National Security Council and gazetted by the Cabinet Secretary for Health on April 6, 2020. There is no doubt that the order for cessation of movement, among the many other measures put in place by the government, will go a long way in addressing the current COVID-19 crisis facing the country. The Speaker, sir, in effecting the order for restriction of movement, the Cabinet Secretary for Health, in legal notice, in legal gazette number 51, dated 6 April 2020, set the boundaries of the Nairobi metropolitan area. In the said boundaries, I have observed that a roadblock has been set up on Thika Road at Kilimambogo area, which is about 56 kilometers from Nairobi town and only 3 kilometers to the boundary between Machakos County and Kiambu County. On the Naivasha-Nairobi Road, the roadblock is located at Uplands, about 45 kilometers from Nairobi city center. On Mombasa Road, the roadblock is located at Small World in Athi River, which is about 35 kilometers from Nairobi city center. And on Kongundo Road, the roadblock is located in Kamulu area, which is also 36 kilometers from Nairobi city center. The Speaker, sir, Thika and Mombasa roads share a lot of economic and social features, including residential and industrial boom. Thousands of Kenyans live in Thika and work in Nairobi and vice versa. Similarly, thousands of Kenyans live in Machakos and work in Nairobi and vice versa. The said counties are therefore greatly interdependent and affected by the effects of the pandemic. However, the current placement of roadblocks, especially on Mombasa and Kangundo roads, appear to be discriminatory to Kenyans residing in Machakos County. This is not the case for the residents of Kiambu County, as the roadblocks along Thika Road, Kiambu Road, and Naivasha Road have given the residents a lot of latitude on accessing the Nairobi metropolitan area compared to the residents of Machakos County. Mr. Speaker, sir, while I do appreciate the work being done by the National Emergency Response Committee in response to the existential threat posed by COVID-19, I urge the ad hoc committee on COVID-19 situation in Kenya, and I see the chairman is here, to take up this matter with the national government. And one, explain the criteria used to determine location of roadblocks in effecting the order of restriction of movement of persons and related measures in and out of the Nairobi metropolitan area. Two, state whether the government took cognizance of the impact the location of the roadblocks to and from lower eastern towns such as Machakos would have on residents of the town who work in Nairobi and live in Machakos. Number three, state measures put in place to ensure there is no disruption of business in factories along Mombasa and Kangundo roads, which depend on workers who live outside the Nairobi metropolitan area. And lastly, state whether the government can consider adjusting the location of the roadblocks on Mombasa and Kangundo roads in view of the residents of Machakos County and the factories situated along these roads. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. I think, okay, Senator Dulo, then Wetangula, the two.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank Senator Wambua for this statement because it's really very important because Kenyans at this particular time, they are being faced with a lot of challenges. I think it is important also for the government agencies, and especially let me say that the measures put in place are really helping Kenyans. And I applaud the government and CS Mutahi Kagwe for this because a lot of Kenyans are really benefiting and it's really cutting down the spread of the virus. Number two, Mr. Speaker, I think we need to look at the dynamics of the counties and where we are putting roadblocks, because some of these roadblocks, they are going to affect Kenyans very badly, especially economically, and also in terms of accessing social services, or rather even essential services. A very good example, Mr. Speaker, is my county, where the people who are transporting milk, camel milk from Isiolo to Nairobi, they have been stopped. And this is the same as Mera, the same as any other essential services, and I hope the committee will be able to pick up this and investigate on it. Number three, Mr. Speaker, as we are actually struggling with COVID-19 and pandemic and insecurity in our country, insecurity is also coming up. Yesterday, three youths were killed from my county by people or cattle rustlers from Garissa County. And I think maybe the committee can also look into that, because if we don't actually look at the other areas that are affecting Kenyans, it means that we are going to be affected very seriously, especially in areas where cattle rustling is prone. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I think we need to look at inter-county movements, because that is also something that might help us as a country. Because this morning I was called from one of my wards in Isiolo County, where somebody who was critically ill dumped between a place called Kina and Garbachula. And that person was very sick. And apparently we need to investigate this. Is somebody from Garissa side. And I think if people are not actually properly advised and also movement checked properly, we can actually infect each other inter-county. So I think the committee has a plate full, but I hope you'll be able to look at those issues that are really pertinent, especially the roadblocks and the rest of the issues that are mentioned. I thank you.
Senator Wetangula.
That is a very important statement by the distinguished senator for Kitui. Mr. Speaker, we congratulate the Minister for Health. So far, he's done a good job in telling Kenyans what is going on and in also telling Kenyans what to do and what not to do to avoid this pandemic. But, Mr. Speaker, some measures that are being taken must also be taken within the context of the provisions of the Constitution and the law. Mr. Speaker, we all know that towns like Kikuyu, Kiambu, Thika, Machakos, Kitengela, up to Kajiado are bedrooms of Nairobi. Many people work in Nairobi and have opted to either acquire property or have cheap rented property in those areas where they reside. Now, the provision to lock off Nairobi, I don't think was well thought out in terms of the inconvenience being caused to Kenyans who live and work in Nairobi from those areas, or live in Nairobi and work in those areas from Nairobi. This needs to be looked at. I want to encourage the committee chaired by my distinguished nephew, Senator for Nairobi, not just to concentrate on the issues that appeared in the preliminary statement, but also look at the broader issues that are affecting Kenyans. For example, Mr. Speaker, I've received a petition from youths in Bungoma town that wherever it gets to 7 o'clock, and I was very happy to see the president go on TV and apologize to Kenyans for the excesses that the police were making on Kenyans. When a Kenyan is found 2-3 minutes past 7 walking home, one would expect that the police will assist them to get home safe, not to be beaten thoroughly. What the police are doing, Mr. Speaker, as soon as the clock hits 7, they are walking around with truncheons, with whips, and they are beating up young people, and this is particularly happening in Bungoma. In fact, this morning I spoke to the county commissioner and cautioned him that that is unacceptable and he has to bring his people to order. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, I thought the close down of the country by way of curfew was going to reduce criminal activities. In fact, in some areas, crime is even going higher. In my county again, Mr. Speaker, which you also come from, there has been a spate of robberies every night, from Bungoma all the way to Chwela along the Kibabi University Road. People come dressed like police, I'm not saying they're police, carrying guns in military fatigues, and they enter people's homes, business premises, and carry away whatever they find. This also must be dealt with, Mr. Speaker. I want to urge, finally, the committee of Senator Sakaja also to note that a declaration of a curfew is synonymous constitutionally with a declaration of emergency. And when an emergency is declared, the Constitution obligates the executive to bring the matter to the Houses of Parliament, not to the National Assembly, to Parliament, both houses, to explain why, the duration, and the limitations of the rights of the citizens within this period. I'm not aware of any time, Mr. Speaker, the executive has come to any House of Parliament to explain the process of this curfew and the degree to which the rights of Kenyans have been limited, including but not limited to the police wielding unreasonable force on Kenyans whenever they're found outside the curfew time. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Because of time, we'll have to move to the next statement. We are trying to manage, I seek your intelligence that we are operating within extraordinary times. So really, if we have to address the matter, I'll give you an opportunity to talk on other statements, which are quite many. So I seek for your intelligence. Chair Sakaja, I'm sure you don't want to respond now.
I'm not responding, Mr. Speaker. I just want to assure Senator Wambua that this is indeed one of the issues we are looking at, as opposed to maybe what is more popular out there. We're focusing on many areas. There are 5 thematic areas. We've met with the CS Mutahi Kagwe on Saturday. Tomorrow morning, we'll be meeting with the CS Interior and the entire team, including the IG. So, and in the afternoon, we'll be with the transport sector. So I'll invite Senator Wambua to attend that meeting so that they can also be able to raise that issue. It's a virtual meeting, so we'll send the login details. And if you look at the first and second progress reports that we've tabled, that is part of the areas that we're actually focusing on. So Karibu will invite you so that you're appraised. Thank you.
I know, Leader, you have a statement, but let me, as you settle down, Senator Mbito.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 47-1 to make a statement on a matter of general topical concern, namely the habit by hospitals of detaining deceased persons over non-payment of outstanding bills. Mr. Speaker, sir, when people take their relatives to hospital, it is the hope of the person, it is a hope that the person will be attended to, treated, and that they will get well enough to go back home. Unfortunately, this is not always the case, and at times the patient loses the battle and dies. Oftentimes, there are patients who die after prolonged stay in hospital or even following emergency treatment that is often very costly. Mr. Speaker, sir, there appears to be a continuing habit in Kenya of detention of patients for inability to pay their hospital bills. There are countless accounts of distraught families having to deal with rogue hospitals that refuse to release bodies of their deceased relatives for burial because of huge outstanding medical bills. Cases of relatives having to end up in court for intervention to enable them bury their dead are also rampant and cannot be overstated. Alarmingly, such detention of patients has gained social acceptance, and with most Kenyans being forced to mobilize funds from family, friends, and other well-wishers to secure the release of their kin, instead of challenging the illegal detention by the hospital. To mention just but a few, Mr. Speaker, in 2012, the Nairobi Hospital was taken to court via case number 407 of 2012 over the detention of a deceased person. Again, the current hospital, via case number 448 of 2015, was taken to court over the same issue. Most recently, in 2017, a policewoman whose twins died after birth was detained in a Nairobi hospital for failure to foot a bill of 3 million. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm further perturbed by a current story of a family in Gatuikira, Kiambu County, which was on Thursday last week forced to hold a burial of their son without the body after it was detained at Gertrude's Children's Hospital over a bill amounting to 17.8 million. The boy, 13-year-old Brian Nikimani, who passed away in February this year, was undergoing treatment for leukemia for 5.5 months before he passed on. This is a very sad state of affairs, and the cruelty meted on the poor patient, parents, and relatives of this boy is unfathomable. For a family to have to bury an empty coffin because of inability to raise the hospital bill is unacceptable by any standards. Mr. Speaker, sir, this detention is unconstitutional. The Constitution protects everybody's rights to dignity, to protection from cruelty, inhuman, degrading treatment, and to liberty. The right to get dignity means one must be valued and treated with respect. The right to be protected from cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment places a responsibility on the government to ensure that no one is treated in a manner that causes them mental, emotional, and physical pain, or in any manner that humiliates them. The right to liberty means one should not be arbitrarily deprived of their freedom. The courts have on several occasions pronounced themselves on the matter of detention of the deceased persons by hospital. It is imperative that this illegality be put to a stop, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, the next step is to engage a national conversation around financing and regulation of the health sector to eliminate arbitrary pricing, thereby addressing one of the root causes of these detentions. Further, the government is currently pushing the Universal Health Coverage Program with the aim of ensuring that the most vulnerable citizens can access quality health care without being crippled by financial hardships. Mr. Speaker, as chairman of the Standing Committee on Health, I wish to make an undertaking to follow up on the case of young Brian and any other Kenyan that might be undergoing similar situation and report to this House in due course. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
So I'm giving the following senators 3 minutes, starting Senator Farhia, Senator Nderitu, Senator Mwaura, and Senator Nyamunga. They had raised up their hands very early. Okay, let's see. 3 minutes, please put your thoughts together so that we save on time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In terms of the medical issue, is a very serious issue in terms of the charging and billing of hospital and the exorbitant prices that people are being charged. And I wish to thank Senator Mbitu for bringing this to this House. Mr. Speaker, there is need for hospital. I mean, this is a liberal economy. You can set your price. But the thing is, people need to give humane face to how they charge those prices. Because most Kenyans, even including transport, they go to India to go and get services because they feel that that is much more cheaper and to seek health services from Kenya. Despite the quality that we have in terms of the issue. Mr. Speaker, the other issue is that when somebody is charged, for the person who loses the loved one, that is double tragedy for them. First of all, they lost the loved one whom they wanted to take care of. And then second thing, there is such a huge bill that they are left with. So it's like the person has died twice. And people are so helpless, Mr. Speaker, that, and then especially people who don't have, like, people with good economy and all that, Kenyans are all not the same, Mr. Speaker. And then the other thing is, in terms of, people are also not aware of NHIF. Most people are not aware. By just paying voluntary contribution of 500, at least you can receive some level of reprieve in terms of your medical bill, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, I am happy that the senator has given undertaking that he will take this matter to the next level. And Mr. Speaker, we really need to save Kenyans the trouble of medical care, especially with the surge of, critical illness like, cancer that, is in the way even you die is so painful. And then somebody locks your body for lack of payment. Mr. Speaker, I think we have lost humanity in this country, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Nderitu.
Asante sana Bwana Spika kunipa fursa hii. Nataka kumpongeza mwenyekiti wa kamati ya afya kwa taarifa hii nzuri. Kwanza kabisa niseme ya kwamba jambo hili la kuwazuia wagonjwa katika hospitali limekuwa ni mazoea. Ukiangalia hasa hizi hela wanazoitishwa hospitalini baada ya pengine yule mgonjwa kufa, unapata ni hela ambazo kwa ukweli hazina maana yoyote. Kwa mfano unapata sindano, na sindano yenyewe unajua inauzwa shilingi 3. unapata inauzwa shilingi 300, ndiposa ile pesa ambazo ameitishwa inakuwa ni kubwa zaidi, hata anashindwa kulipa. Unaangalia marehemu tayari mtu amekufa, Bwana Spika, na bado hospitali inasema ati hela ambazo mgonjwa anapaswa kulipa inaendelea kuongezeka maradufu. Unashindwa ni nchi gani? Jambo lingine linalo ni stua zaidi ni ya kwamba mwenyekiti hangekuja kusema angetaka taarifa yenyewe. Mwenyekiti angekuja katika bunge hili na kutuambia yale mambo ambayo kamati ya usalama, kamati ya afya imefanya na kutuambia majibu. Angepaswa kuja kuuliza, angekuja kutuambia nimefanya hili, mahali ambapo panaleta kizungumkuti ni jambo hili, kusudi tuweze kumsaidia. Lakini yeye kuja kwa katika...
What's your point of order, Senator Ledama? You are...
Mr. Speaker, sir, I thank you. I was listening to my colleague trying to question why the chair of the Health Committee brought this statement and why he should not be telling us what we should do. I think this is the house where we put our minds together to be able to determine
What's your point
what
of
is
order?
the best. The point of order is this. I think Senator Nderito is completely out of order by questioning why the chairperson brought the matter to this house. Because, yes, it is his committee which is dealing with this matter, but I think when he brings it in this house, it gives us an opportunity to share ideas on how we can help these Kenyans. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I know for a fact, the lower house, there are 2 MPs who have been dealing with this issue to amend the Health Act. I know the MP from Mombasa, Nyali, Mohammed, and also another one called Okello. They have been pushing for this, so I don't see as if there's anything wrong with the chair.
Senator Cherargei, what's your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to thank the Chair of Health. He has communicated to the House, but is it in order for Senator Nderito, who is my chair in devolution, but one of the ranking members of Health Committee, to cast aspersion on his own chairman? Is it in order, Mr. Speaker?
Senator Nderito.
Bwana Spika, nataka kushukuru. Pengine najua kwa sababu mimi natumia lugha ya Kiswahili inawachanganya kidogo. Nilianza kwa kusema ya kwamba nampongeza mwenyekiti wangu kuleta taarifa ambayo ni nzuri sana. Lakini nikasema, kwa hivyo ni vile hawakunielewa katika lugha. Wakati mwingine tutumia lugha ya Kiingereza, nafikia hiyo wamebombea sana. Kwa hivyo Bwana Spika, nilitaka kusema ya kwamba mambo haya ya hizi hospitali kuwashika wagonjwa ni jambo ambalo halikubaliki. Lile nilikuwa na shida nalo, Bwana Spika, ni kusema tu mwenyekiti wangu angekuja aseme katika nyumba hii tumefanya hii na hii. Si kusema ni makosa yoyote, nilisema nampongeza kwa taarifa. Pengine Senator Redama na Senator wa kutoka Nandi ningeongea kwa lugha ya Kiingereza wangenielewa zaidi. Naomba asante sana.
Okay, I think other members. I think what Senator Nderito is saying that the chairman should have, being the chair of health, should have put more emphasis on what they have done and the challenges they are meeting, and make it a bit smaller, so that he doesn't complain himself, because he's the chair and is supposed to be ahead of this on this particular matter. I think let's proceed so that we don't waste a lot of time. Senator Mwaura.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the statement by the Chair of Health. And if you see him coming here to also make these statements, it's a clear indictment of the fact that we require to do much more as a Senate to assist the committee to come up with a solution. As I speak, Mr. Speaker, I'm processing a letter to Kenyatta University Referral Hospital of a little girl by the name Andy Wanjiru Mwangi, who got ill and was admitted at Kenyatta University Referral Hospital. She has cerebral palsy because of convulsions, and she passed on 7th of April, and yet she has not been able to be discharged for burial. The family approached me because they have a bill of 1.3 million, and they have exhausted the 100,000 under NHIF. Mr. Speaker, this is a very serious issue because we have indigents, people who can't pay, won't pay. How do you deal with that? And yet when you look at this corona crisis, it has actually exposed our health systems to be meant for the rich. That is why doctors, overcharge like 10, 15 times what the nurses are earning. And when you look at our NHIF, out of the 38 billion shillings that we give to this agency through the contributions, 22 billion goes to private hospitals. And another 8 billion goes to faith-based hospitals, like Kikuyu Hospital. Only 7 billion goes to public hospitals. And yet, if these monies were properly appropriated, they would actually make a whole difference in terms of ensuring that such patients, such individuals, such families who are suffering a lot, especially under this COVID-19 where nobody is actually earning, have an opportunity to bury their dead with dignity. And so, Mr. Speaker, really this is a serious matter, and we should be seized of this matter. And now that the Chair of Health has actually made his statement here, maybe you should direct the COVID-19 special committee to deal with this, because certainly we cannot take it back to him to superintend over this matter. And Mr. Speaker, we need to really come up with measures, because right now, even the people who are suffering are not those that are vulnerable in the manner that we know during this corona crisis. As somebody actually said very clearly, corona is a colonizer, corona is an equalizer. Thank you.
Senator Nyamunga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity just to make us one or two comments on this statement. First of all, I want to thank Senator Mbito for bringing the statement. Mr. Speaker, the issue of hospital bills, I think we should find a formula of dealing with each case individually, because it depends. And also, we don't want to stop people or stop hospitals from admitting people. Most of that, initially, they were refusing to admit specific people because they thought they may not be paid. So if we don't come specifically with proper regulations on how to do it, it may also be a negative on many patients. So in my view, I know it is very important, it's very difficult to be a doctor. Also, it is very expensive to set up even a private hospital. So as we put these things in place, we should have that in mind. And secondly, I don't think this particular statement should be referred to, in my view, referred to the coronavirus committee, because I think they already have too much. And this is specifically for the committee. We can only put our heads together to find out a way forward. But to me, it is not a matter for the ad hoc committees. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, we are burdening ourselves here with the issues that we have at hand, which is good. But Mr. Speaker, several other counties are really suffering from the floods. Yesterday, we saw what happened in West Pokot, in Elgeyo Marakwet, and even in Kisumu. Mr. Speaker, there's a lot of suffering for our people. I think I've gone to all offices. I've gone to the Minister for Devolution, Minister Eugene, but nothing is happening. Giving people food at this time alone is not enough. Where are they going to cook that food? Where are they going to sleep? Mr. Speaker, there's a lot that we should do as a House during this time that we are faced with so many issues, apart from the COVID and the locusts. Mr. Speaker, Kenyans are suffering, and most so those ones coming from the lowlands. They are really suffering from floods, and something should be done. I have done my best. Fellow members of Parliament from, say, Kisumu and any other parts that have been affected, we've done our best, but we can only talk. We cannot physically go and control the floods for River Nyando. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Finally, Senator Musuruve. Senator Ledama, you spoke. Okay, Senator Musuruve.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support this statement. And I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that the Chair Health has come up with a very important issue. In as much as he's a chair, it is also good for him to bring this issue on the floor of this House. We are in a situation where Kenyans are really constrained, and there are so many deaths, Honorable Speaker. And I want to say also, when someone is sick and is in hospital, the entire family of the sick person is affected psychologically, is affected also financially, economically, and you'll find that sometimes even paying bills becomes very difficult. So there's need for even hospitals to come up with an arrangement with the family to see how exactly are they going to pay the bills, because sometimes it can be very heavy and weighty on the families, and especially for chronic diseases like cancer, even diabetes. It is important for such patients to actually be cushioned. In as much as we are saying that this issue should not go to the Sakaja committee, I want to say that during this COVID period, Honorable Speaker, and with the strains that we have, there's need also to cushion family members who lose their lives during this time, so that our body does not remain in hospital for a very long time, because even family members need to be condoled. Even family members need to be psychologically comforted for what they're going through.
Is it a point of order, Senator Cherargei? Does she want to be informed?
Kindly, Senator, my good friend Senator Daktari, is that the PS Mochacha has said the government is incurring the cost of taking care of patients, and she had put that it should be 1 million to take care of until recovery. So I don't think there is a situation where it arises on any fees that is being incurred. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Okay, Senator Musuruve, wind up.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Now, if there's money aside to support patients, then there's need also for hospitals to ensure that, for the government to work with hospitals to ensure that a percentage of this money comes in to cushion the families of the dead. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Next statement by Senator Mwaura. Ledama, I'll give you an opportunity when the leader makes his statement because it's very similar. Senator Mwaura, you're not supposed to be migrating from, if you listened to my... No dispatch.
Oh.
No dispatch. Go to your seat.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker. We are living in very extraordinary times. Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order number 48-1, I rise to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Education for the March payee deductions for teachers with disabilities. In the statement, the committee should explain A, the reasons that informed violation of Persons with Disabilities Act, number 14 of 2003, which provides for tax exemption for all persons with disabilities in gainful employment. B, state whether due diligence was carried out in a manner in which deductions of the March salaries to teachers who are tax exempt was done. C, explain the mechanisms put in place to ensure that the April salaries and subsequent salaries are not affected. D, explain the measures being taken to help in the reinstatement of the tax exemption status in the TSC payroll for all the affected teachers. And E, explain the measures to ensure refund of the March payee deductions in full. Mr. Speaker, persons with disabilities are exempt from paying tax up to 150,000. If you're below 150,000, you are supposed not to pay tax. And many of the teachers are since exempted. But in the month of March, teachers with disabilities were shocked because TSC arbitrarily decided to remove that legal benefit, privilege that is under the Disabilities Act. And many of them suffered. You can imagine somebody who has actually planned their salary only to go to the bank and they find that the salary is zero because the pay is what they were actually planning after all the deductions. And so it has been very unfair. Thousands of teachers have been calling me to ensure that this illegality is actually not done. And so really, I'm calling upon this August House and of course through the relevant committee
to ensure that the justice is done. In fact, Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, this is a time that the teachers should benefit from the other 5% because pay as you earn was reduced from 30 to 25. So it should actually be more. But in the case of teachers with disabilities, they are actually suffering and they cannot even meet their expenses, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, Senator, I think you've made your statement.
And finally, Mr. Speaker, we need to ensure that then we give Kenyans the opportunity to live a dignified life. In fact, even in terms of cost of food, so that even unga, which cost 90 shillings during elections, should actually cost less than that now, Mr. Speaker.
Next statement from Senator Sakaja.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 51. One, to make a statement on the issue for which the ad hoc committee is responsible, namely the request for statement by Senator James Orengo, Senior Counsel MP, regarding the burial of Mr. James Oyugi Onyango, a resident of Siaya County who reportedly died of COVID-19. Mr. Speaker, as senators will recall, this said statement was sought from the ad hoc committee on the COVID-19 situation during our sitting last Tuesday, the 14th of April. In the statement, the senator sought the following information: the cause of death of Mr. James Oyugi; 2, the reason and justification for the burial of the deceased at night in a shallow grave and without being placed in a coffin as the family had planned; 3, why there was complete disregard of the protocols laid out by the Ministry of Health concerning respect for the dignity of the dead, hours of burial, and sensitivity to acceptable cultural practices and traditions; and 4, why there was no consultation with the family and community before the burial. Mr. Speaker, first I joined Senator Orengo and other senators who spoke on the matter, expressing outrage at the manner in which the burial was done. As a committee, we raised this matter with the CS for Health during our meeting on Saturday, 18th of April, 2020. The CS, as well as the PS, expressed their regret and conveyed their apologies on how the burial was undertaken. Mr. Speaker, despite that, I insisted that we need a written official response on top of the apologies. Of course, he tried to explain why it happened that manner, and that accountability and action will be taken. But Mr. Speaker, the response they have done is ready, but the copy I've seen is not yet signed, so I will not be in a position to give it to the House. I seek your indulgence to give it officially next Tuesday, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Okay, I agree with you. Since it's still work in progress, I think, and in the interest of time, we'll give you that opportunity to give a full report next Tuesday when we convene. Finally, on statements, the Leader of Majority.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 47.1, I'd like to make a statement on the issue of national concern regarding the landslide that occurred on 19th April 2020 in Kerio Valley, affecting residents of Sigor constituency in West Pokot and Marakwet East constituency in Elgeyo Marakwet County. And particularly, Mr. Speaker, the place that was affected most is in the Elgeyo Marakwet County, and which is my ward in Embobut ward in Kipchumwa location, Kipchumwa sub-location. Mr. Speaker, recently, the country has been experiencing heavy rains as a result of the West Pokot, Elgeyo Marakwet counties have experienced massive destruction resulting from the landslide in the two counties. More adversely, Mr. Speaker, in the Kipchumwa and Chesegon Center, the landslide also left a trail of deaths, which are over 20 persons, Mr. Speaker. But of these 20 persons, Mr. Speaker, what really saddens me is that most of them are children, Mr. Speaker, of between 8 years and, Mr. Speaker, 18 years. Some of the children, Mr. Speaker, one family lost twins, Mr. Speaker, who are 8 years old. And you will find, Mr. Speaker, most of the numbers, actually there's a girl of 7 years in a place called Katlit. The twins from Kobil are 2, Mr. Speaker. We have another one of 10, of 8, of 9, of 11, And the oldest, Mr. Speaker, in this group was one person of 82, the other is 46, and the other, Mr. Speaker, is 81. Mr. Speaker, this tragedy, I have never seen something like this. As I said, this is my home area, this is my ward, where we've lost, to start with, 24 people. And Mr. Speaker, the impact that has occurred, and I've seen in media houses, many of the reports are only focusing on the destruction of the shopping center in Chesegon and Liter area, but I wanted to, for emphasis sake, to say the real impact where the landslide started on the islands and where you know it very well because you are an administrator in that area. We have lost 24 people, and the news will be trickling in the fullness of time. We also lost, Mr. Speaker, police officers who were affected in that area because a police post was swept. Mr. Speaker, there is also over 15 persons who are still missing and accounted for. Residents are continuing to struggle with lack of housing, swollen rivers, destroyed roads that have left certain areas inaccessible, Mr. Speaker. In the past, reports have indicated that due to environmental degradation, the two counties are prone to landslides. However, residents who have built their livelihoods in this area have continued to live there, having nowhere else to move, Mr. Speaker. And for context's sake, Mr. Speaker, in 2013, we moved many people from Embobut Forest so that we can conserve Embobut Forest. And so they went to ancestral land in the escarpments. And as a result of that, they put a lot of impact and pressure on the environment in the escarpment. That's why you saw many landslides, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish to reiterate here that these people have nowhere else to live and have no other alternative land. I wish to commend the government for the quick efforts undertaken to manage the current situation. As a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, the same evening, the leadership of Elgeyo Marakwet and West Pokot had a conference call with the Deputy President. And Mr. Speaker, the following day, the President called, among other people, myself, to assure us, Mr. Speaker, that we want that the government is going to do everything possible to solve the situation. And therefore, I want to appreciate them because they sent, Mr. Speaker, government officials to the ground. However, Mr. Speaker, little or no effort has been made to account for over the 15 persons who are missing as a result of the landslide, and also that search and recovery has largely been left to the locals who are really equipped to undertake that exercise, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's so bad that the search that is being done by the locals, they find body parts, Mr. Speaker, which you find a hand, somebody's hand on one side, the leg, and so it's very traumatizing, Mr. Speaker. While I appreciate the efforts from the government, I believe that much more should be done to manage the situation, including putting in place measures to relocate population to safer grounds and upgrade the environment, Mr. Speaker, to prevent further incidents in the future from happening. It's for this reason that I wish to draw this matter to the attention of the Senate and appeal to the Standing Committee on Land, Environment, and Natural Resources to take up this matter with the national government and, one, explain the measures being undertaken to ensure that all persons who reside in the affected areas are fully accounted for. Two, state the measures being undertaken to find alternative land to resettle the families that are displaced annually. Three, state whether there is any form of compensation that will be granted to the families and victims who are accounting huge losses as a result of the destruction of property and loss of lives. Four, state the steps being undertaken by the government to rebuild the schools that have been destroyed, such as Liter Girls High School, which has completely been destroyed, Chesegon Primary School, and Cheptany Primary School in West Pokot and Elgeyo Marakwet, respectively, and the roads that have been washed away as a result of the landslide. And finally, state the measures that are being undertaken to upgrade the environment in this area to ensure that these incidences do not occur in future. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, I want to thank my colleagues who have shown interest in supporting these people. I will be coming back to them formally, together with Senator Pokisho, Mr. Speaker, to request for further support so that we can supplement the efforts that are being done by other well-wishers and the government of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
Senator Kwamboka.
Thank you,
Then
Mr.
Senator
Speaker.
Cheriot. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to read on this statement of the Majority Leader. First of all, I want to pass my condolences to the families which are affected for Elgeyo Marakwet and the West Pokot. Mr. Speaker, it is very sad during this COVID, the curfew times, that such a disaster is happening. It is very sad that we've lost even children. And Mr. Speaker, I don't know where this bill of disaster management bill, which was being handled by Senator Mutula,
I forgot to say I'll limit you to 3 minutes each.
Senator Mutula and Senator Sakaja. It is a high time that this bill has to be given justice so that we can know these people who have been affected. How can they be compensated, or where should they be taken at this particular time? Because some of them, they had businesses over that place. How can they run their businesses, Mr. Speaker? So, Mr. Speaker, it is very sad, and I pass all my condolences, and I know all shall be well with those two counties. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Ledama, then Cheriot.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I thank you. First, I want to thank the Majority Leader for bringing this statement. I truly empathize with the people of Elgeyo Marakwet and West Pokot because of the challenges. Mr. Speaker, sir, I truly...
You're out of order. Can you wear your mask?
I'm doing it. Mr. Speaker, sir, I empathize with the...
Senator, you may need to shave your hair so that it facilitates your... Okay, proceed.
Mr. Speaker, sir...
What's your point of order, Senator Sakaja?
Mr. Speaker, even as I interrupt my good friend, Senator Ledama, Mr. Speaker, when you gave guidelines, I think you should have specified the type of mask, because this is a dustpan mask for sweeping, you know, and that is why he can't express himself. Maybe you should specify which type of masks members should wear. Otherwise, people will come with all manner of contraptions, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Wambua, what's your intervention?
Mr. Speaker, I plead with the chair to maybe require the sergeant at arms to provide Senator Dama with the right mask, Mr. Speaker, so that he can address us properly. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, I think the sergeant at arms has been providing masks. Let us stick to masks that are friendly.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I'll try. I think I was feeling so sorry for the people of Elgeyo Marakwet that it got so emotional, because this happens all the time. And I think instead of waiting for us to ask ourselves what the government can do, it is about time that we should start engaging these institutions so that we can be able to prevent this from happening, or rather when it happens, we can be able to at least support our constituents. When I saw that and I saw the Majority Leader flying there, I could only imagine of the time when in Narok, the floods will take everyone, and there's nothing we can do. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, during this time of Corona, and just like the earlier statement which was raised by, I think, Senator Mbito, in terms of people's bodies being detained in hospitals, I think we need to really ask ourselves whether there are any measures that this House can immediately take to ensure that we support these people. Because in the case of a hospital, and I'm sure there are others who will be taken to the hospital, this might happen again such that you see that their bodies are detained there because they cannot pay. I know for a fact that hospitals are in business and they're out to get profits. But in this case, when there is a disaster, I think really some of the money for COVID-19 should actually be allocated there, because if people are not able to even maintain that social distance, they might end up contracting this disease. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, in summary, I want to encourage the Majority Leader to reach out to us also in person so that we can be able to assist. This is a time when we should all give. This is a time when we should all find a way that we can help our brothers. And then, the most important one, plant trees. When we plant trees, we save the environment, and we ensure that tomorrow, when there is a landslide, there's something that will be able to hold that soil from moving. I thank you.
Senator Cheriot, then Senator Falhada.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I pass my condolences to the people of Elgeyo Marakwet and West Pokot County following this very unfortunate disaster that has befallen upon them. Mr. Speaker, this is what we were referring to a few minutes ago with the statement from Senator Moses Wetangula, that there are certain regions of the country that are considered to be more special than others, that 24 Kenyans can die, and more than 48 hours later, or even going to 72, not a single high-ranking government official, either a minister or maybe a permanent secretary, has showed up in the region to try and give guidance to the people that are leading the rescue efforts. It tells you the kind of discrimination that certain citizens of this country continue to live with. And it's really unfortunate, and I hope that the people that occupy these offices in the executive do find their conscience wherever they lost it and treat all citizens of this country as if they are equal. Number two, Mr. Speaker, this unfortunate incident hasn't only happened in Elgeyo Marakwet. Last evening, in the county that I represent in this house, Kericho County, and Senator Rose Nyamunga alluded to it earlier, on our boundaries between Kericho and Kisumu County, there were incidences of mudslides too, and we lost 4 young children, and there are other rescue efforts that are ongoing, so we do not know what will be the final tally. And as we speak up to this particular time, Mr. Speaker, like I have said earlier, we are still awaiting on national government to get its acts together so that they can at least help these people. One of the duties that I did when I came to this house this afternoon, I went to the back chamber to pick a phone call from the same citizens who are telling me that the county commissioner arrived and told us that government doesn't have any assistance. The only news that I brought you is that you're supposed to bury your dead within 24 hours in follow-up to government directives. That is shameful, Mr. Speaker. And I hope that those who are in authority will put their act together and assist the citizens of this country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Falhada.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I thank Senator Murkomen for bringing this statement, and my condolences to the family and friends of West Pokot and Elgeyo Marakwet. First of all, Mr. Speaker, I thank the government who was there quickly to respond to this matter, and they really need to do more. In 2022, we've started with a lot of disasters. We've started with the drought.
2020?
2020, sorry, 2020.
Okay.
My mind is in 2022. 2020, we've started with the falls, we've started with the disaster, we've started with the drought, we've started with the locust, the flood, COVID-19, and many more to come, and the landslide that happened. And the recycle will continue. And I want the government.
Senator Narok, you are becoming a health risk. Can you, please, it's important that you keep the mask on. Proceed, conclude.
The government is lacking preparedness, Mr. Speaker, and they should have learned from the disasters we've come through. And I believe there is more disaster to come, and the government should do more. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Cherargei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to start to convey my deepest condolences to the many families through the Elgeyo Marakwet Senator, and say it is almost last year also we had similar incident where almost 60 lives were lost. And I hope when time comes, we will be able to assist in one way or another. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, Senator Aaron Cheruiyot has said also in Tinderet sub-county, where we border with Kisumu County and Kericho County, we have noticed also mudslides, and there are so many issues that is happening. My own appeal is that even as the Committee on Lands and Environment, Mr. Speaker, discusses this issue, I noticed that the leader of majority talked about alternative land when he was in Chesogon area. So I also plead, especially in Kipkelion, Ahero, Kobura village, in Nyando, somewhere in Chepkaroi, in Tinderet sub-county, we can be able to provide even, there are so many idle lands that belong to ADC, lands that we can use these lands and allow people to live so that we can rehabilitate. And finally, Mr. Speaker, is also to allow, let us also be environmentally conscious, let us plant trees, especially areas of escarpment, like Nyando escarpment, where we share with Kisumu, the areas of Kipkelian West and many other areas, so that when landslides or mudslides happen, Mr. Speaker, at least the trees can assist in preventing further fatalities. Finally, Mr. Speaker, last time, the minister in charge of Interior was not able to fly to West Pokot in 2019 because the helicopter that they were having, that they acquired over 3 billion, could not fly to West Pokot. I think that is the reason he cannot fly up to date. I have only seen regional commissioner who has gone there. I hope with the interventions and disaster management bill that is coming, will allow counties to have power to manage disaster management, so that this issue of buying unga from Nairobi to take all the way to West Pokot or Elgeyo Marakwet should stop. Those things should be managed by governors at the county level. I thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir.
I'm trying as much as possible to give an opportunity to those who have not spoken. So Senator Omogeni, then Senator Milgo, Harugura.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also want to join my colleagues in registering my condolences to the people of Elgeyo Marakwet and Pokot who have lost loved ones. To the 24 families, my sincere condolences. Number two, Mr. Speaker, I do agree with the sentiments expressed by my good friend, the Senator for Narok, that we should all be ready to generously donate towards any assistance that can be given to the 24 families that are affected. But most importantly, Mr. Speaker, it is really bad manners for the government to just sit and watch while these 24 families are going through very agonizing moments. I think, Mr. Speaker, it should always be a practice for our government to set aside a fund which can respond to some of these calamities. It will be good, Mr. Speaker, if the government was to identify the families that have been affected and they are given financial assistance. As we have been told, Mr. Speaker, there are people who have lost businesses, there are houses that have been destroyed, there are people who don't even have homes. We really need to see a better response from the government. I can't agree more with the Senator for Kericho. When I saw, the last time I saw a calamity of this magnitude in the US, in the Tennessee Valley, I saw the Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence, personally visiting the scene. So I hope that the Deputy President of the Republic, who is, I believe, a neighbor to Senator Murkomen, will find time to personally visit the victims of this calamity in Elgeyo Marakwet. I can't think of any high-ranking officer other than the Deputy President. And then planning. Mr. Speaker, when Kerio Valley was set up, it was meant to put in place...
That's your point of order, Senator Murkomen.
So, Your Excellency, Mr. Speaker, when I
hope those are good wishes.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker. That's where you're headed. Mr. Speaker, when I made my remarks earlier, I told you that the President himself called me and the Deputy President. We had a meeting with him. Mr. Speaker, and the CS Interior, whose responsibility is under matters of disaster, we spoke with him even this morning. So, Mr. Speaker, I don't know why. The only thing I have a problem with, and I appreciate my colleagues saying that all of these high-ranking officials, from the Cabinet Secretary to the Deputy President, the President should go there. I only have a problem with him trying to say there is no other high-ranking member in this country after the Deputy President. Mr. Speaker, doesn't he know that the President is the leader of this republic?
Yes, Senator Mogeni.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I did not say that there is no other high-ranking member other than Deputy President. I said when we speak of high-ranking government officials, we should be thinking of the DP. That is the principal assistant of the President. But the point I was making, Mr. Speaker, is that...
President is a standalone. That's what you're saying. And all those others. Can you conclude?
Yes. So, Mr. Speaker, that notwithstanding, Mr. Speaker, the point I'm making is that we need to see our government responding to this calamity by sending high-ranking government officials, and I can't think of any person other than the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Milgo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for allowing me to also condole with the people of West Pokot and Elgeyo Marakwet on the disaster that just happened. Mr. Speaker, sir, I think that the issue of floods and landslides is not a new thing. And particularly in the areas that just happened, there was an early warning sign that there shall be heavy rains as well as floods. And I think what is lacking in our country is disaster management, and I wish to support the issue of actually ensuring that the county governments put in place a very strong disaster management issue. Because as things are standing right now, we may take food to the people who have suffered, and thinking about the 24 people, what it is that they have suffered psychological, physical, and even mental tortures, because they have lost not only property, they have lost their loved ones, and in any case, all their life's resources is already down to the drain. Mr. Speaker, sir, I think there should be a better way of actually managing such disasters and looking at this. Normally, when we have given a sign as a country, we ignore. And while we wait for the national government, I think it is high time that this House actually ensure that the bill that was put forward should be able to actually be ascended to, so that it can be able to speak to the regulations or whatever issues that should go into the management of disasters. Otherwise, I think those 24 people need a lot of assistance, not only food, they need finance, they need a place to stay. And I think I support the leader in terms of actually shifting those people from lowlands, not only in Elgeyo Marakwet, but in all those areas which are prone to floods. And we identify other areas where such people can live. And in this case, I support the issue of planting trees there to prevent other soil erosions and flooding. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Hargura.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to send my condolences to the families of the bereaved 24 persons, in particular, and the people of Elgeyo Marakwet and West Pokot generally. Mr. Speaker, we have been going through disasters one after the other. It's either drought or it's floods and this kind of things. So as a country, we should be prepared. I know in case of drought, there is the National Drought Emergency Fund, which is a 2 billion shillings fund, which this parliament actually passed the law on, which I don't know whether the president has assented to, which needs to be used. Similarly, generally we need to have a bigger kitty to handle disasters. But now, as I'd like to thank also the majority leader for giving us clear facts on what actually happened, that this area was settled, it was degraded, and that is how it became unstable, the slopes. The government needs to come in. As it is right now, first things first, I think it should not leave to the members of the public to go looking for their loved ones who have been missing or trapped. It should come in at least to alleviate their suffering by actually making them have their people to bury. And then there should be very clear way of carrying out this disaster management. Going forward, these are unstable slopes. We know we have the Water Towers parastatal, which is supposed to be doing afforestation. We know they have been getting money from EU. So we need to know what they're doing with this money. We just don't just leave our people to create this kind of environmental disasters, then we just watch. At least we need to see the government action in terms of even relocating the people, then institutions also have to be relocated. So let's see quickly what can be done. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, Senator Wetangula, Mwaruma, and finally, Omanga.
Thank you, Mr.
What's your point of order, Senator Sakaja?
Mr. Speaker, would it be in order, because Senator Mutula, Kilonzo, and myself worked very hard on a legal framework. Even as you give condolences, Mr. Speaker, as a Senate, we've done our part. There's a National Disaster Management Bill that went to the National Assembly. Would it be in order if I request, Mr. Speaker, that the Senate Business Committee, through you, writes to the Speaker of the National Assembly to find out where this legislation is, because we need to establish a proper framework for national and county governments to coordinate. And we work here, we legislate, so these things, we don't have to deal every week, every month, every 2 months. Could I kindly request, Mr. Speaker, that you make that communication, sir?
Okay, I will undertake to write to my colleague in the National Assembly, and I'll give a feedback next Tuesday. Senator Wetangula.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I also join my colleagues in sending our condolences to the people of Elgeyo Marakwet and West Pokot, who are our neighbors. And Mr. Speaker, seeing the pictures of what was happening was very disheartening. Mr. Speaker, disasters do happen even in very developed countries. But how we handle them is what defines us as a nation. And I'm not quite sure that the disaster in West Pokot and Elgeyo Marakwet has received the attention that it deserves. I've said over and over, Mr. Speaker, that we have a fairly large army in this country. We have not had any war situation for a long time, apart from our current misadventure in Somalia. Mr. Speaker, when such disasters do occur, we expect the Commander-in-Chief to immediately deploy our army with all the equipment they have to go and help in the rescue missions. You cannot, Mr. Speaker, expect wananchi, like I've been seeing young boys of about 14, 15, 16, running through mud, carrying dead bodies, and at the end of the day, they're heavily traumatized and will require some counseling to recover. I want to urge, Mr. Speaker, the bill that Senator Sakaja is talking about, in fact, was born out of a trip we had to Canada, and we visited the Canadian Disaster Management and Response Center in Vancouver. That was a shining example of how you can manage disasters. And I want to join you in asking that that bill should not be sitting in the lower house anymore. Thank you.
Senator Mwaruma, then Omanga will conclude.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa hii fursa kuungana na maseneta wenzangu kumshukuru seneta kiongozi wa walio wengi katika seneti Mheshimiwa Kipchumba Murkomen kwa hiyo taarifa aliyotupatia kuhusu janga lililotokea Elgeyo Marakwet na Pokot ya Magharibi. Kusema ukweli, tunaomboleza na wale ambao walipata haya majanga, na tunaomba serikali ya kwamba wapate kujizatiti na kusaidia wale waliokumbwa ama walioathirika katika hili janga, ili wapewe chakula, wapewe nyumba, hata kama serikali itatengeneza hema, ili wale wananchi wasiendelee kuteseka pale. Na tumeambiwa kwamba wengi walioathirika sana ni watoto na kina mama. Na kusema ukweli ni kwamba katika ule muundo wa kisheria hatuko sawa sana, lakini najiunga na wenzangu kina Senator Sakaja kwamba kama kuna njia tunaweza leta muundo wa kisheria wa kusimamia majanga Kenya, basi itakuwa ni jambo la muhimu sana. Na vile vile najiunga na nakubaliana na wenzangu ya kwamba wale wengi wameathirika pale watahitaji huduma za kiafya. Wakienda pale basi wasilipishwe na watibiwe bila kulipishwa, kwa sababu hili janga vile lilivyo na vile janga la corona lilivyo, tunaomba serikali zetu za county na za serikali kuu wasilipishe hawa watu walioathirika katika haya majanga. Na hili janga si katika hizo county mbili peke yake. Kuna Tana River kule pia kuna mafuriko, kuna Taita Taveta pia nyumba zimeanguka, na kama kuna mpangilio wowote wa kusaidia haya magatuzi ama wananchi walioathirika, basi zifanyike kule Elgeyo Marakwet na Pokot, lakini pia Tana River, Taita Taveta na kaunti zile zingine zilizoathirika. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika.
Finally, Senator Omanga.
Asante Bwana Spika, ningependa kutoa rambirambi zangu kwa familia za West Pokot na Elgeyo Marakwet ambao walipatwa na ili janga la mafuriko. Bwana Spika, mchana kabla nije hapa kwa habari za mchana, niliona kwenye televisheni kwamba hata kule Trans Nzoia kuna daraja ambazo zimechukuliwa na hii mafuriko. Kule kaunti ya Kericho kuna janga hili la mafuriko. Pia kule Kisumu Ahero watu wameweza kuama na mizigo yao na wako hata barabarani kule wanaongojea usaidizi wapelekwe mahali pali wanaweza kuwa wakikaa. Na hii janga ya mafuriko, Bwana Spika, imekuwa ikitoka mara kwa mara, na tunajua sehemu ambazo zinapata hili janga kama Murang'a ni pahali inakuwa inapata hii janga ya mafuriko mara kwa mara. Vile seneta mwenzangu amesema kutoka Taita Taveta, pia Tana River na Taveta inakuwa inapata hili janga mara kwa mara. Kama nchi tunafaa kuwa, kwa sasa tumejua sehemu ambazo zinapata hii janga la mafuriko, na tutafute suluhu ya kudumu. Sisi kama maseneta tunasema kweli tutasaidia wale watu wa West Pokot na Elgeyo Marakwet, lakini sisi kibinafsi haiwezi tosha. Lakini kama nchi, kama serikali, tunafaa kuwa na sheria ambazo zinaweza kuwa zimewekwa, mikakati imewekwa ambayo itaweza kuwa inasaidia hao watu, na janga hili likitokea tunaweza jua vile ya kuwasaidia. Mimi nikiwa shule tulikuwa tunasikia hiyo masiku, ilikuwa ni Rais Moi ambaye alikuwa anaongea maneno ya mnyonyoko wa udongo. Ilikuwa inaitwa mnyonyoko wa udongo. Mbona tupande miti tuzuie mnyonyoko wa udongo. So ningependa kusema, Bwana Spika, ni kwamba tunafaa pia kuwarai wananchi wenzetu tuendelee kupanda miti, tuache kukata miti, tuache kumaliza forest zetu, ndio tuzuie hii janga ya mafuriko na tuzuie mnyonyoko wa udongo. Asante Bwana Spika.
Nakupongeza kwa kujaribu. Okay, as we conclude on that, the information I have is that they have so far recovered 15 bodies, 20 people are still missing, and KDF have joined the efforts in recovery. So the committee will work on that. Next order.
Order number 8, motion, reduction of publication period for the Pandemic Response and Management Bill, Senate Bills number 6 of 2020.
What's your point of order, Senator Leader?
Mr. Speaker, you didn't commit the statement to the relevant committee formally.
Oh, okay. It's committed to the Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources. And I'm sure they have had, they need to move with speed because of what is going on there. Yes, what's your point of order, Senator Mauro?
The same case, Mr. Speaker, you didn't commit my statement to the relevant committee.
That one of teachers. Education, I think it's committed to the chairman, to the Committee on Education. And one on land, environment, on Marakwet, we need an interim report by Tuesday when we resume. Next order, Leader of Majority.
I get a second. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the motion that pursuant to Standing Order 134, the Senate resolves to reduce the publication period for the Pandemic Response and Management Bill, Senate Bill number 6 of 2020, from 14 days to 4 days. This is a procedural matter. I don't want to waste time, and ask the Deputy Minority Leader to second.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's time to support, to second this motion, Mr. Speaker. We are alive of the fact that we need to fast track this motion so that we cushion Kenyans during this COVID-19 pandemic, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's barely 2 months after the first case of COVID-19 was discovered in Kenya, and we've seen Kenyans being affected in the rural areas, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, it is important, Mr. Speaker, for us to consider the passage of this motion so that we reduce the publication period to enable this bill to come into enforcement, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, extraordinary circumstances require extraordinary measures, Mr. Speaker. COVID-19 presents an extraordinary circumstance, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to second this bill and urge members, this motion, Mr. Speaker, and urge members to support it. Thank you.
Honorable Senators, I propose the question, which is that pursuant to Standing Order 134, the Senate resolves to reduce the publication period of the Pandemic Response and Management Bill, Senate Bills number 6 of 2020, from 14 days to 4 days. I put the question, which is that pursuant to Standing Order 134, the Senate resolves to reduce the publication period of the Pandemic Response and Management Bill, Senate Bill number 6 of 2020, from 14 days to 4 days. As many of that opinion say aye. As many of contrary view say nay. The ayes have it. Next.
Order number 9, motion, reduction of publication period for the county allocation of revenue bill, Senate Bills number 7 of 2020.
Leader.
The Speaker, again, a procedural motion. I beg to move the motion that pursuant to Standing Order 134, the Senate resolves to reduce the publication period of the county allocation of revenue bill, Senate Bill number 7 of 2020, from 7 days to 4 days, and request the Senate Majority Whip to second.
Mr. Speaker, I second.
Honorable Senators, I propose the question, which is that pursuant to Standing Order 134, the Senate resolves to reduce the publication period of the county allocation of revenue bill, Senate Bill number 7 of 2020, from 7 days to 4 days. I put the question, which is that pursuant to Standing Order 134, the Senate resolves to reduce the publication period of the county allocation of revenue bill, Senate Bill number 7 of 2020, from 7 days to 4 days. As many of that opinion say aye. As many of a contrary view say nay. The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 10, the Community Health Services Bill, Senate Bills number 5 of 2020, first reading, and a bill for an act of parliament to provide a framework for the delivery of community health services, to promote access to primary health care services at the community level and reduce health disparities between counties, to provide for the training and capacity building of the community health workforce and for connected purposes.
Okay, next order.
Order number 11, the Pandemic Response and Management Bill, Senate Bills number 6 of 2020, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to provide a legal framework for a coordinated response and management of activities during a pandemic, temporary measures and relief during a pandemic, and for connected purposes.
Next order.
Order number 12, the County Allocation of Revenue Bill, Senate Bills number 7 of 2020, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to provide for the equitable allocation of revenue raised nationally among the county governments for the 2020-2021 financial year, the responsibilities of national and county governments pursuant to such allocation, and for connected purposes.
Okay, honorable senators, for the convenience of the House, I wish to rearrange the order paper so that we start with order number 14 and 15, then come back to order number 13 for continuation, for resumption of debate. Next order then. Order number 14.
Order number 14, motion, report of the Mediation Committee on the County Government's Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 11 of 2017.
Mr. Chairman. Leader, are you ready? I think as you may need a bit of time as you reorganize order. Take your seat, Chair. I have a communication and I'll give you an opportunity. So, Honorable Senators, as indicated in today's order paper, 3 bills have been read a first time. Standing Order 141 requires that having been read a first time, a bill be committed to the relevant standing committee. Accordingly, the following bills are hereby committed to committees as follows. A, the Community Health Service Bill, Senate Bills number 5 of 2020 is committed to the Standing Committee on Health. And B, the County Allocation of Revenue Bill, Senate Bill number 7 of 2020 is committed to the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget. Honorable Senators, Standing Order 142 provides that despite paragraph 1, the Speaker may direct that a particular bill be committed to such a committee as the Speaker may determine. Consequently, I hereby direct that the Pandemic Response and Management Bill, Senate Bills number 6 of 2020, be committed to the Ad Hoc Committee on the COVID-19 situation in Kenya, and pursuant to Standing Order 145, the 3 committees are required to facilitate public participation on their respective bills and take into account the views of the public when the committee makes their reports to the Senate. I thank you. Okay, Chair, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the interest of time, Mr. Speaker, I'll read the resolution of the committee. The Mediation Committee considered the contentious provision of the County Government Amendment Bill 2017, and the following amendments to the bill were adopted by the committee. Clause 8, that Clause 8 of the bill be amended in the proposed amendment by Section 25 in the new subsection 2 by deleting the words and the County Gazette appearing immediately after the words Kenya Gazette. Rationale. The Mediation Committee agreed with the National Assembly amendment since the law on the County Gazette is yet to come into force. Clause 11, that Clause 11 of the bill be amended in the proposed amendment to Section 31 by deleting the proposed new paragraph A and substituting.
What's your point of order, Senator Zani?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to check that this motion has been appropriately moved before it's discussed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move the motion that the resolution of the Mediation Committee
Just read the way it's written, that the Senate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That the Senate. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move the motion that the report of the Mediation Committee on the County Government Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 11 of 2017, that the Senate adopts the report of Mediation Committee on the County Government Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 11 of 2017, laid on the table of the Senate on Tuesday, 31st March 2020, and pursuant to Article 113 of the Constitution and the Standing Order 116.3 of the Senate Standing Order, approve the mediation version of the bill. Mr. Speaker, due to interest of time, may I proceed by reading, Mr. Speaker? Clause 8 of the bill be amended in the proposed amendment on Section 25 in the new subsection 2 by deleting the words and the County Gazette appearing immediately after the words Kenya Gazette. The rationale, Mr. Speaker, was that the Mediation Committee agreed with the National Assembly amendment since the law on the County Gazette is yet to come into force. Clause 11, that the Clause 11 of the bill be amended in the proposed amendment to Section 31 by deleting the proposed new paragraph A and substituting thereof A, may dismiss a county executive member if the governor considers appropriate and shall give reasons for dismissal. The rationale was the Mediation Committee agreed with the Senate amendment that the county executive committee member is a nominee of the county governor and should be dismissed procedurally, but the governor shall not be required to give reasons. At the national level, pursuant to Article 132 of the Constitution, the President may dismiss a cabinet secretary, the Attorney General, the Secretary to the Cabinet, Principal Secretary, High Commissioners, Ambassadors, and diplomatic and consular representative, and any other state or public officer whom the Constitution requires or empowers the President to appoint or dismiss. In such instances, the President is not required to give reasons for dismissal. Mr. Speaker, in clause 15, for clause 15, that the bill be amended by deleting the clause 15 and substituting thereof section 44, the principal act is amended by deleting subsection 2 and substituting thereof. 2, a person shall be qualified for appointment as a county secretary under subsection 1 of that part if that person is a citizen of Kenya, holds a degree from the university recognized in Kenya, has at least 10 years relevant professional experience, has at least 5 years experience in leadership position at senior management level in a public service or private sector organization, and or meets the requirements of leadership and integrity as prescribed in Chapter 6 of the Constitution. B, inserting the following new subsection immediately after subsection 2. 2A, the governor shall, for the purpose of competitive recruitment of a county secretary under subsection 2, constitute a selection panel. 2B, the selection panel shall constitute of the following persons. K, a chairperson not being a public officer, one person from private sector, an advocate of High Court of Kenya who is a member of Law Society of Kenya, and an accountant who is a member of Institute of Certified Public Accounts of Kenya, and or one person from an association representing workers. 2C, the provision of section 58A shall, with most modified as shall be necessary, apply to the recruitment of county secretary. 2D, upon interviewing the applicant of the position of the county secretary, E, the selection panel shall submit to the governor the names of 2 applicants who qualify for appointment as county secretary, and F, the governor shall submit the name of the applicant to the county assembly for approval for appointment at county secretary by the governor. E, the county secretary shall hold office for a term of 5 years and shall be eligible for reappointment once. 2F, the county secretary shall be an ex officio member of the county executive committee with no voting rights. C, inserting the following subsection immediately after subsection 3. 3, the county secretary shall be removed from office on the following grounds. K, inability to perform functions of the office arising out of physical or mental infirmity, incompetence, gross misconduct, bankruptcy, or violation of the Constitution. Before removal under subsection 3, the county secretary shall be informed in writing of the reason of intended removal. 3C, subsection 3A, 3B, the coalition of appointment, county secretary may be dismissed by the governor. The rationale, Mr. Speaker, the mediation committee agreed on the modification version of the National Assembly amendment. Mr. Speaker, the minutes are attached and the schedules are provided for. I beg the majority leader to second.
Majority.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to second the report of the committee. As a member of that committee, Mr. Speaker, and originator of the bill, most of the suggestions that were given by this House, Mr. Speaker, have been adopted. The others, also a number of them given by National Assembly, two or so, have already been adopted, including the absence of a county printer. We had to remove it from the bill because there is no county printer. And Mr. Speaker, we fashioned the section that deals with, Mr. Speaker, the hiring of county secretary, Mr. Speaker, to tally together with the other existing provisions of the County Government Act. So, Mr. Speaker, in the interest of time, and to ensure that we are able to address the business that is in the order paper, this is a bill that we had discussed and passed. So the changes which are there, we are the ones who suggested the changes. A few were suggested by National Assembly, and there was a consensus. So I don't think we should spend more time because we are not reopening debate on the bill as it was. Mr. Speaker, I beg to second.
Okay, honorable senators, I now propose the question. Because that the Senate adopts the report of the Mediation Committee on the County Government Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 11, of 2017 laid on the table of the Senate on Tuesday, 31st March 2020, and pursuant to Article 113 of the Constitution and Standing Order 161.3 of the Senate Standing Orders, approves the mediated version of the bill. And just like the leader has said, I think we are not reopening a debate because this has already been discussed, and therefore direct that the bell be rung for, put the question, sorry, that the Senate adopts the report of the Mediation Committee on the County Government Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 11 of 2017, laid on the table of the Senate on Tuesday, 31st March 2020, and pursuant to Article 113 of the Constitution and Standing Order 161.3 of the Senate Standing Orders, approves the mediated version of the bill. And since this okay, for the convenience of the voting, we'll do order number 15, then I'll give the order. Yeah. Order number 15. Yeah.
Order number 15, motion, report of the Mediation Committee on the County Government's Amendment number 2 Bill, Senate Bills number 7 of 2017.
Okay. Okay, Senator Nderitu.
That the Senate adopts the report of Mediation Committee on the County Government Amended number 2 Bill, Senate Bill number 7 of 2017, read on the table of the Senate on Tuesday, 31st March 2020, and pursuant to the Article 113 of the Constitution and Standing Order 161.3 of the Senate Standing Order, approves the mediation version of the bill. Mr. Speaker, the Mediation Committee considered the contentious provision of the County Government Amendment number 2, Bill 2017. The following amendments to the bill were adopted by the committee. Clause 2, that Clause 2 be amended in the proposed amendment to Section 123A by deleting the proposed Section 8, subsection 8, and substituting thereof following new subsection 8, where the Commission does not recommend the suspension of the county government, the President shall, within 14 days of receipt of the report of the Commission under subsection 7, submit to the Speaker of the Senate and the apex intergovernmental body, A, the report and the recommendations of the Commission, and B, the petition of the suspension of the county government. B, in the proposed subsection 9, by deleting the words whether or not appearing in paragraph A and substituting thereof the word that. 9, where the Commission recommends the suspension of the county government, the President shall, within 14 days of receipt of the report of the Commission under subsection 7, submit to the Speaker of the Senate, A, a memorandum stating the President is satisfied that justifiable ground exists for suspension of the county government. B, the report and the recommendation of the Commission, and C, the petition for suspension of the county government. Mr. Speaker, the rationale was the Mediation Committee agreed with the National Assembly amendment since there is need to separate the instances where the President is satisfied with the recommendation for a suspension and when the President is dissatisfied. As in Clause 8, the timeline of 14 days was agreed to. C, by inserting a new subsection immediately after the proposed subsection 9A, where the President is not satisfied that justifiable ground exists for suspension of the county government, the President shall, within 14 days of receipt of the report of the Commission under subsection 7, notify the Speaker of the Senate and the apex intergovernmental body for his dissatisfaction. The rationale, Mr. Speaker, was the Mediation Committee agreed with the Senate amendment with regards to submission of the report and the petition, and the National Assembly amendment with regards to the timeline of 14 days and the submission of the report and the petition to the apex intergovernmental body. Mediation Clause 13, upon authorization of the suspension of the county government by the Senate in terms of Article 192.2 of the Constitution, the President shall, within 14 days of receipt of the Senate resolution and by notice in the Gazette suspend the county government for a period not exceeding 90 days or until the suspension is terminated earlier by the Senate in accordance with Article 192(4) of the Constitution. The rationale, Mr. Speaker, was the mediation committee agreed with the Senate amendment with the regards to use of the word authorization, since it is consistent with the language of the Constitution in Article 192(2). Further, the mediation committee agreed with the National Assembly amendment on providing a timeline of 14 days within which the President is required to act on the Senate resolution. D, by deleting in the proposed section 14, where the Constitution does not recommend the suspension of a county government, or whether the President is not satisfied that justifiable ground exists for suspension of the county government, the Senate may consider any other recommendation of the Commission not relating to whether or not the county government should be suspended, and make a determination on the way forward with respect to those recommendations. The rationale, Mr. Speaker, was the mediation committee agreed that this amendment by the Senate be rejected, since the Senate is not restricted by the Constitution or standing orders to make recommendation or determination on other matters which are not related to the suspension of the county government. Clause 3, that clause 3 of the bill be amended by renumbering the last provision under the proposed new section 129 as subsection 8. Upon the termination of a suspension of county government, A, the interim county government board appointed under section 126 shall stand dissolved, and B, the governor, the deputy governor, and the members of the county executive committee, the speaker, and the members of the county assembly shall resume their functions and continue to receive their benefit in full from the date of termination of the suspension, and shall hold office for remainder of their term. Rationale, the mediation committee agreed with the National Assembly amended to the bill in order to address the error. Mr. Speaker, the minutes are attached schedules, and I would schedule and the agreed version of the bill. I request the majority leader to second.
The Speaker, again, I'm privileged to second this bill, which was sponsored by Senator Mutula. The Speaker, again, the committee had very robust discussions. Most of the issues we canvassed were, Mr. Speaker, technical issues that were referencing to other bills, but also, Mr. Speaker, was to ensure that the bill captures also the aspirations of the people of Kenya. And so I don't want to say much, just to say, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to second. And Mr. Speaker, this bill is really, really necessary for dealing with matters of boundaries, so that then the IEBC and other institutions can be able to apply. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, order, senators. I now propose the question, which is that the Senate adopts the report of the Mediation Committee on the County Government Amendment number 2 Bill, Senate Bill number 7 of 2017, laid on the table of the Senate on Tuesday, 31st March 2020, and pursuant to Article 113 of the Constitution and Standing Order 161(3) of the Senate Standing Orders, approves the mediated version of the bill. Just like we did with the other one, I think it was already discussed. I therefore put the question, which is that the Senate adopts the report of the Mediation Committee on the County Government Amendment number 2 Bill, Senate Bills number 7 of 2017, laid on the table of the Senate on Tuesday, 31st March 2020, and pursuant to Article 113 of the Constitution and Standing Order 161(3) of the Senate Standing Orders, approves the mediated version of the bill. And since this is a matter, both of them, 14 and 15, are concerning counties, we shall go to voting. So I order that the bell be rung for 2 minutes. Okay, direct that the direct that the bus be closed. Okay, honorable senators, I will put the question for order number 14, which is that the Senate adopts the report of the Mediation Committee on the County Government Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 11 of 2017, laid on the table of the Senate on Tuesday, 31st March 2020, and pursuant to Article 113 of the Constitution and Standing Order 1613 of the Senate Standing Orders, approves the mediated version of the bill. So we'll proceed to voting using the new guidelines that I gave. So the clerk will call out the names.
Senator Adan Dulo Fatuma, Isiolo County.
Vote yes.
Senator Ali Abdullahi Ibrahim. Senator Cherarke Samson Kiprotich.
Vote yes.
Senator Cheriot Aaron Kipkirui.
Yes.
Senator Haji Mohammed Yusuf, Garissa County.
I vote yes.
No.
It is the
votes
leader.
yes.
I know this is the first day, so there's a bit of confusion, but the leaders are the ones reading because that's why you signed. Proceed, Senator.
Senator Hargura Godana, Marsabit County.
Vote yes.
Senator Kamar Margaret Jepkoech Wasingishu. Senator Kangata Irongo, Murang'a County. Senator Kibiru Charles Rubenson, Kirinyaga County. Senator Kihika Susan Wakarura, Nakuru County.
Vote yes.
Senator Kimani Wamatangi Paul, Kiambu County.
Vote yes.
Senator Senator Kindiki Kithure, Tharaka Nithi County. Senator Kirinyaga Ephraim Mwangi Maina, Nyeri County. Senator Langat Christopher Andrew, Bomet County.
Vote yes.
Senator Lelegwe Steve Tumbesi, Samburu County. Senator Linturi Franklin Mithika, Meru County. Senator Lloyd Tiptip Anwar, Lamu County. Senator Mahamud Mohamed Maalim, Mandera County. Senator Mbito Michael Malinga, Trans Nzoia County.
Vote yes.
Senator Moi Gideon Kipsielei Towet, Baringo County. Senator Mpayei Philip Salau, Kajiado County. Senator Murkomen Onesimus Kipchumba, Elgeyo Marakwet County.
Vote yes.
Senator Mwangi Paul Githiomi, Nyandarua County. Senator Nderito John Kinywa, Laikipia County.
Vote yes.
Senator Ndwiga Peter Njeru, Embu County. Senator Pogisio Samuel Losuron, West Pokot County. Senator Sakaja Johnson Arthur, Nairobi County.
Vote yes.
Senator Wario Golich Juma, Tana River County.
Sorry. Yeah.
Senator Linturi Franklin Mithika, Meru County.
Vote yes.
Vote yes.
Senator Imana Malaki Charles Ekau, Turkana County. Senator Kabaka Boniface Mutinda, Machakos County.
Vote yes.
Senator Kajwang Moses Otieno, Homa Bay County.
Vote yes.
Senator Haniri George, Vihiga County. Senator Madzayo Stewart Mwachiru, Kilifi County. Senator Malala Cleophas Wahungu, Kakamega County.
I vote yes.
Senator Mbogo George Ochilo Ayako, Migori County. Senator Mogeni Eric Okongo, Nyamira County.
Vote yes.
Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr., Makueni County. Senator Mwaruma Jones Mwashushe, Taita Taveta County.
Vote yes.
Senator Mwinyi Haji Mohamed Faki, Mombasa County. Senator Olekina Ledama, Narok County.
Vote yes.
Senator Ongeri Samson Kegongo, Kisii County.
Vote yes.
Senator Orengo James, Siaya County. Senator Outa Frederick Otieno, Kisumu County.
Vote yes.
Senator Wako Sitswila Amos, Busia County. Senator Wambua Enoch Kio, Kitui County.
Vote yes.
Senator Wetangula Moses Masika, Bungoma County.
Vote yes. I want to vote for him. No, they have said even for him.
Okay, these are the results. Abstentions 0, nays 0, ayes 24. The ayes have it. Okay, honorable senators, I now put the question for order number 15, that the Senate adopts the report of the Mediation Committee on the County Government Amendment Number 2 Bill, Senate Bills Number 7 of 2017, laid on the table of the Senate on Tuesday, 31st March 2020, and pursuant to Article 113 of the Constitution and Standing Order 161.3 of the Senate Standing Orders, approves the mediated version of the bill. Yeah, and proceed with the vote. Okay.
Senator Adan Dulo Fatuma, Isiolo County.
Vote yes.
Senator Ali Abdullahi Ibrahim. Senator Cherarke Samson Kiprotich.
Vote yes.
Senator Cheriot Aaron Kipkirui.
Yes.
Senator Haji Mohamed Yusuf.
Yes.
Senator Hargura Godana Marsabit County.
Yes.
Senator Kamar Margaret Jepkoech Wasingishu County. Senator Kangata Irongo Muranga County.
Yes.
Senator Kibiru Charles Rubinson Kirinyaga County. Senator Kihika Susan Wakarura Nakuru County.
Yes.
Senator Kimani Wamatangi Paul Kiambu County.
Yes.
Senator Kindiki Kithure Tharaka Nithi County. Senator Kirinyaga Ephraim Mwangi Maina Nyeri County. Senator Langat Christopher Andrew Bomet County.
Yes.
Senator Lelegwe Steve Tumbesi Samburu County. Senator Linturi Franklin Mithika Meru County.
Yes.
Senator Loitiptip Anwar Lamu County. Senator Mahamud Mohamed Maalim Mandera County.
Yes.
Senator Bito Michael Malinga Trans Nzoia County.
Yes.
Senator Moi Gideon Kipsielei Towet Baringo County. Senator Mpayei Philip Salau Kajiado County. Senator Murkomen Onesimus Kipchumba Elgeyo Marakwet County.
Yes.
Senator Mwangi Paul Githiomi Nyandarua County.
Yes.
Senator Ndiritu John Kinywa Laikipia County.
Yes.
Senator Ndwiga Peter Njeru Embu County. Senator Pogisio Samuel Losuron West Pokot County. Senator Sakaja Johnson Arthur Nairobi County.
Yes.
Senator Boy Issa Juma, Kwale County.
Yes.
Senator Imana Malachi Charles Ekal, Turkana County.
Yes.
Senator Kabaka Boniface Mutinda, Machakos County.
Yes.
Senator Kajwang Moses Otieno, Homa Bay County.
Yes.
Senator Haniri George, Vihiga County.
Yes.
Senator Madzayo Stewart Mwachiru, Kilifi County. Senator Malala Cleophas Wahungu, Kakamega County.
I vote yes.
Senator Mbogo George Ochilo Ayako, Migori County.
Yes.
Senator Mogeni Eric Okongo, Nyamira County.
Yes.
Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr., Makueni County.
Yes.
Senator Mwaruma Jones Mwashushe, Taita Taveta County.
Yes.
Senator Mwinyi Haji Mohamed Faki, Mombasa County.
Yes.
Senator Olekina Ledama, Narok County.
Yes.
Senator Ongeri Samson Kegengo, Kisii County.
Yes.
Senator Orengo James, Siaya County.
Yes.
Senator Outa Frederick Otieno, Kisumu County.
Yes.
Senator Wakos Sitswila Amos, Busia County.
Yes.
Senator Wambua Enoch Kio, Kitui County.
Yes.
Senator Wetangula Moses Masika, Bungoma County.
Yes.
Honorable Senators, these are the results. The abstentions, 0. The nays, 0. The ayes, 33. The ayes have it. Therefore, direct that the bars be drawn. We go back to order number 13.
Order number 13, motion, the first and second progress reports of the ad hoc committee on COVID-19 situation in Kenya.
Senator Sylvia Kasanga was on the floor. So, yeah?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I proceed to finish seconding
the motion that was passed by my chair, Senator Sakaja. Let me start first by giving my heartfelt condolences and share my empathy.
You have 15 minutes, eh?
Thank you. With the victims of the mudslides. And I pray that Senator Majority Leader, when the help is needed, we shall be there to support you. Mr. Speaker and fellow senators, already a week has passed since we started moving this motion. The committee has sat for a total of 22 meetings, Mr. Speaker, as we speak, and a lot more has moved on. So in fact, I want to make a request, Mr. Speaker, that going forward, we give a bit more priority to these reports as we bring them on the floor of the table, because there are a lot of things that members need to be seized on, and there's a lot of work for senators to do in this pandemic period. But I must thank you on behalf of the committee for fast-tracking the bill, and I pray that members, you prepare accordingly for the bill debate and also see what members of public are also giving us, because we've appended them to the reports. So my prayer is that you look through them, because there's a lot of information that we are sharing. As we speak, Mr. Speaker, we've had meetings to do with the first thematic area, which I was trying to highlight on the issues of health. Already we have met all frontline workers from their various associations, from the Kenya Medical Association, the nurses, the pharmacists, clinic officers. We met all of them, including community health workers. And I have to thank you, Senator Zani, for your bill, because serious gaps were identified when we spoke to all these practitioners, and especially the community health workers, considering they're the first liners right at the county. And at a time like this, which senators, we must admit that the only best way to fight this pandemic is through prevention. Senators, this is where you come in as leaders, because if we don't sensitize our constituents on the issue of prevention, we will not be able to handle what comes to us. Mr. Speaker, we have met with the Council of Governors and the County Assembly forums. A lot of gaps have also been identified there, Mr. Speaker, and I'm really encouraging members, even as the third report comes, you want to see what these people have said to us and where they have sought your attention as senators for your action. Mr. Speaker, we also met with pathologists, we met with National Influenza Laboratory, we met with the Kenya Health Federation. Lastly, we met with the CS of Health on Saturday. We had a very good meeting with him. He was able to address a lot of the issues that were brought up from this first thematic area, Mr. Speaker. And, we must commend him for the work that he's doing and, of course, give support. He did make several requests to senators and members of parliament on where to come in to help, and especially on the issue of monitoring and doing your legislative duty of making sure your governors are doing what they're supposed to be doing. Mr. Speaker, there are a lot of gaps there. A lot of counties are still not waking up to the response as should be expected. He did highlight 5 counties that are doing very well when it comes to this response. Mr. Speaker, we have everything in the report, and you have to laud the counties that are doing something about it. Even just now, I've seen the Senator of Machakos has posted that he doesn't want truck drivers to stop for long along the highway in Machakos area, and it's because truck drivers have been identified as a high-risk group of people. Mr. Speaker, we also met with KEMRI. KEMRI today gave us a lot of information. We now know about tests. We now know what they're doing about research, as well as production of, various things, including hand sanitizers and testing kits, quick, rapid testing kits. So we've learned a lot, Mr. Speaker, and a lot is going on. Actually, you'll be very proud to be a Kenyan today when you know what our first-line responders are doing, Mr. Speaker. We also met with the Ministry of Labor under the second thematic area. So my fellow senators, I want to just go back to the thematic areas that we had highlighted, and I cannot stress more on the importance of you following the 5 thematic areas that we highlighted, because that is the way we are engaging with stakeholders, both government and private as well. So for matters of health, which were very lengthy, we have canvassed quite a bit, and we've heard from the ministry, And we are still going back to engage further with other stakeholders in the hope that we shall meet again with the CS, and also as we debate the bill, any other issues that may arise, then we can canvass them. On the second thematic area, members and Mr. Speaker, just one second. The second thematic area was economic and finance issues, Mr. Speaker. And here again, we got a lot of views from members of public and from the senators in the committee as well. And we are looking to engage with the CS of the Treasury, amongst other stakeholders, to look forward to seeing what we can do to cushion Kenyans when it comes to issues of economics. Mr. Speaker, part of the conversation we had with the CS of Labor, he did highlight what they're doing in the Ministry of Labor. And when we meet with the CS of Treasury, we are also looking forward to engage a little deeper. But a lot has been canvassed in this thematic area in the bill. So if you read about the issues of taxation, when it comes to the very contentious issue of landlords and tenants, as well as employers and employees, all that is canvassed in the bill, Mr. Speaker. It is an area of key concern to a lot of Kenyans. There's been a lot of misconception, but when you read the bill, senators, you will understand where we are coming from. Issues of KRA that were brought up by a lot of members of the public, we've also canvassed them, and we are also looking forward to your engagement on that. On the third thematic area, which was the social, public order, and human rights, again, a lot of views came out on this part, Mr. Speaker. Vulnerable persons and groups, we did engage the CS of Labor on this issue and what they're doing about it. He did tell us that the Inua Jamii, they're using the Inua Jamii platform to disburse the monies that the president spoke about, some 8-point-something billion shillings. We went into detail about that and the gaps that are still there. And your senators, you're requested also to be vigilant and to make sure what is happening in your counties is what the same report that we are receiving, and to give as much support as you can to make.
What's your point of order, Senator Musuruve?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Now, I would like to inform this committee that when it comes to issues of persons with disabilities, there are so many who are not registered with the National Council, and during this COVID time, there is a possibility that they'll be missed out because there is a lot of outcry out there from persons with disabilities that they have not really been factored in and they're not really being reached out. So there's need to come up with a specific way that will ensure that persons with disabilities are actually captured during this time.
Is it a point of order? Is it information or
it's information for the committee.
You are indirectly contributing. Okay, Senator Sylvia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to encourage Senator Musuruve that you're welcome to join the committee. We've also shared our engagement matrix, and you can join us when we are meeting a specific stakeholder. But I know some of those issues were canvassed, gaps were identified, so you can bring the issue to the committee if it is a specific issue, or you can join us the next time when we are meeting and engaging these stakeholders. You're absolutely welcome. Today we had Senator Juma Boy join us in the meeting. So you just, like the chair said, you just express your interest and you'll get an invitation. So Mr. Speaker, under the second thematic area, we'll be looking at issues of employers and employees. As I mentioned before, we shall be looking at learning institutions when we meet with the Cabinet Secretary of Education, because we also need to understand how they are coping and what is their intention going forward. How do they expect exams to be done this year, or reopening of schools and teaching and all the other challenges that are going to ensue from there. Mr. Speaker, we shall be looking at restriction of movement. As Senator Sakaja did mention from the statement that was brought today by Senator Wambua, these are areas that have been raised by members of public, and we intend to canvass them when we meet the CS of Interior. Then there's the issue of access to justice. Again, a lot of outcry, like we had today. I think one of the senators did comment on how the youth are being treated when it comes to breaking of curfew and things like that, as well as judiciary. I've seen today again on 411 that the judiciary is very clear. They're not going to have physical meetings but they are going to do, I think, teams. They're going to open up the courts through teams. So again, that is some good progress we are seeing on that area. Mr. Speaker, what I also want to say is that from what we have learned as a committee, we must really stress on Kenyans doing the bare minimum. That is, avoid crowded places, minimize movement, wash your hands, social distancing, because we must use these measures for prevention. Kenyans must understand that in the event of an outbreak spreading, the way we have seen in other countries in Europe and Asia, it will be beyond us to cope, and that is the reality of things. The fourth thematic area is access to food, water, and essential commodities. That is, one, ensuring the continuous supply of food and other essential commodities at affordable prices. We are all worried, Mr. Speaker, that as much as we cannot move around, like was stated, we can't access our places of work, we can't access our markets, then what is then going to be the fallback plan by government when it comes to this? And in the hope, and we touch wood, that we don't go into a situation that may require a total lockdown. We really pray we don't have to go there. But should we go there, then what is the plan? And these are the issues that were raised by members of parliament, by members of the public. We had a submission from the Honorable George Kaluma. He made very substantive submissions and ideas on how the government could cope with this. And a lot of other people, especially persons with disabilities, did come out strong in some of these areas and giving good ideas on how the government should manage. So we are looking forward to engage further so that we can see what is the government's plan and also give the views that we are getting. The issue of transparency in utilization of emergency funds, this has come up heavily. Everyone wants to know how have the funds been utilized? Is it in fairness? Is it going to the right people? Are the minorities being considered heavily? So, Mr. Speaker, again, that's very critical from that thematic area. How are donations being handled? A lot of suggestions on a central handling of donations is coming out. Again, we are waiting to hear from the ministry on how they're going to handle that. Access to food, water, and other basic commodities. And especially because we are saying people need to wash their hands regularly. Is water then available in every corner of this country? So those are some of the basics. Then there's, of course, the food security for the vulnerable people, the vulnerable households. Mr. Speaker, today I think I saw on the Star newspaper that if we survive COVID, we are then likely going to die of lack of food. Food is now going to be our pandemic here in this country. So, senators, you need to be seized of these issues. And of course, the last, some of the other things are like the supply chains of essential commodities and consumer protection to make sure where there is food, it is available. And I think the government has made good strides in that because we know essential services such as food are still flowing within the counties. So again, mapping of food donations and distribution of relief food so that we don't have cases of crowding and where people are rushing off and then they end up hurting each other. So, Mr. Speaker, there's a lot in that section, and one important area is sustaining the sanitation services. That one came out very strongly, and of course, the waiver of utility bills, a very interesting area and an area of contention, but we expect that the government is going to look for a way to cushion Kenyans when it comes to utility bills. And social protection programs as well. There are very many areas on this, and the statistics, institutional framework for coordination of anything to do with the vulnerable persons, Mr. Speaker. Then, of course, measures to control plant, livestock disease and ensure continuity in food production. That is also a very important area under this thematic. The fifth thematic area, Mr. Speaker, is on support services and cross-cutting issues. Starting with public awareness programs, I think the government is trying very hard when it comes to this, and you're called upon as leaders also to spread the word that the government is giving so that we send the right messaging, so that we protect our people. And that it means a lot of consistency in the information needs to come out clearly, and we need to avoid the misconceptions. We have to be at the forefront to clear up if there is any misinformation that is out there. Also, transparency and accountability when it comes to management of the fund falls also under this key area. Addressing of stigma becomes very critical. Already we are seeing COVID being stigmatized. And this is an issue we discussed at length with the minister and how they're going to deal with it, because then we beat ourselves in the foot. We shoot ourselves in the foot when we don't message properly and when people now are stigmatizing each other, because you might find somebody getting stoned or beaten up or attacked because he has COVID, but it shouldn't be that way. Coordinated youth-led awareness creation came out very strong from the members of public that the youth should be used in messaging. ICT matters, communication and infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, again, our committee has met successfully because of ICT. It is looking like it is the new way of life that is coming, and we need to embrace it as a house, as leaders. And the government is also beginning to embrace ICT, because all our meetings with the cabinet secretaries and all the others have been online and they've been successful. So handling issues of security, amongst others, are areas that shall be considered. Internet access becomes very critical, privacy and data protection, and communication of taxes, human rights issues, networks and connectivity, technological innovation, amongst other things, Mr. Speaker.
Your time is up.
Yes, so as I wind up and I second, I urge that we read and prepare accordingly, and we look forward to the third report, which is going to be sent to you, because we just missed the time to bring it in today, Mr. Speaker. I second.
Honorable Senators, I propose the question, which is that the Senate notes the first and second progress report of the ad hoc committee on COVID-19 situation in Kenya, laid on the table of the Senate on Tuesday, 14th April 2020. So I'll give 5 minutes each, starting with Senator Zani was the first, then Senator Malala, Senator Ongeri, Ledama, Mogeni, Senator Susan, those who have not talked. Okay. Senator Zani.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I stand to support this motion, and it's actually two reports from the ad hoc committee on COVID-19 situation in Kenya. And I'd just like to start by saying that really, I thank the Senate and the Senate leadership and this committee specifically for the work that they have done, because I think it has been very, very extensive, and they went out and started this work at a time that was very critical for this country, and also gave us a chance, even as Senate and generally as Parliament, to be able to infuse our thoughts and ideas into a situation and how to solve it. Mr. Speaker, the report is very comprehensive. Both the reports, actually the second report is moving towards the bill, which I think is already published, and that's a very good outcome, because it gives us a deliverable and something we can action on. The report starts with a very extensive background, establishment of the committee itself. It moves on to give various case studies from US, Mexico, different countries, Australia, Italy, Denmark, which just give us the basis. Mr. Speaker, I think it's so important that the basis and some of the actions that have been taken by the various countries which have been put into this report can actually be used as a borrow point for what we can do. And I just want to specifically go to a country like Mexico, for example, where 3 billion has been put into research, 2 billion has been put into prevention, and a couple of other billions, 1 billion for medical supplies. Mr. Speaker, this is the way to go. And I think as Senator Kasanga was already seconding this motion, she did mention the importance of the fund, the contributions that are going into that fund, and probably some of the areas in which that money can go into accountability and the funding and the feeling of knowing that something is happening. Mr. Speaker, I just want to go briefly through some of the issues that have been raised. The 5 thematic areas are very, very clear and very, very visible and very, very important across the board. I just want to start with the issue of, for example, cash transfers, which I think is very critical. Mr. Speaker, what I see is that sometimes we seem to be approaching and trying different ways of sending money to the vulnerable. One method that has been used, and it came across in these case studies, is the issue of cash transfers. So if it's really possible to identify where this money should go to, then the issue of cash transfers can solve that very easily, because we have M-Pesa providers who can do that. Mr. Speaker, the other issue which I think is critical is just to say that probably we have to infuse some of the messages that are already going out to the public. For example, when you have the message of stay at home, we can strengthen it by not only saying stay at home, for example, and gargle with hot water and salt, stay at home and use lemon, stay at home, and we have to go back to those traditional preventative methods, for example, that we know so well, steaming ourselves up, because this will also help various communities to prevent this, and they've already been doing that. The issue of masks and masks etiquette, Mr. Speaker, we could actually have on the front line of the newspaper clear indication about how to use the masks, where to get the masks from. It was alarming the other day when when it was seen on social media that there is a possibility of these masks even being recycled. On the issue of health issues generally, the issue of quarantine and the issue of social distancing is also important, ensuring that that is maintained very, very clearly. On the issue of economic and transfer issue, I've already mentioned about the cash transfers, but another one is also the stimulus package for micro, small and medium-sized enterprises. That also needs to be infused. And I think also this committee can help us by giving us very clear indicators of what has been done from the various recommendations. Of course, we've moved to the bill, but since this committee is able to interact with the various stakeholders, this can come out clearly. On the issue of social public order and human rights, the issue of protection of vulnerable groups, women and girls, for example, and abuse that might happen during this time, the issue of learning is very critical, and probably being able to link with educational institutions to ensure that online teaching is going on very well, and to congratulate many institutions that already put this into place. The fourth thematic issue, access to food, water, and other basic commodities, very key. One of the messages that should be going out very clearly is that agricultural impetus should still continue in areas where planting can go on. As Senator Kasanga said, we might then find ourselves facing the problem of starvation after we face the problem of COVID. And then in the area of support services and cross-cutting various areas, the issue of prevention of infection is very, very critical. Mr. Speaker, we need to find and infuse ways for these messages to be heard very, very clear. I support, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Malala.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to congratulate the ad hoc committee led by my brother, Honorable Sakaja. Mr. Speaker, I'll go straight to the thematic areas that they have raised. Mr. Speaker, on the area of health, Mr. Speaker, we have seen the CS Health giving out different directions as to how the public is supposed to carry out itself, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there is this issue of being mandatory for you to put on masks in public, Mr. Speaker. Today, Mr. Speaker, in Kakamega County, the Kakamega County Governor has decreed that anybody who is found not putting on a mask in public areas will be arrested and quarantined for 14 days, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in as much as we support this directive, Mr. Speaker, I think this is a catch-22 situation for our people. These masks come at a cost, Mr. Speaker, and most of our people live below the poverty line, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have people who earn 100 shillings in a day. The cost of the mask is around 50 shillings in a day. You are left to wonder whether that citizen will prioritize buying the mask or buying food, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I call upon the respective county governments not to issue threats to Wananchi, but to provide masks for Wananchi. I want to call upon Governor Oparanya not to arrest citizens of Kakamega, but to purchase masks and give them for free, Mr. Speaker, because it is the responsibility of government to cushion Wananchi, especially during these trying moments, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on the thematic area of finance, Mr. Speaker, we have seen county governments misappropriating funds, Mr. Speaker. We have allegations of county governments taking advantage of this situation and taking advantage of the emergency laws, Mr. Speaker, to misappropriate funds. I want to call upon the Public Accounts Committee of the Senate and the respective county assemblies to look deep into the appropriations of funds, Mr. Speaker, at the county level. And we must bring to book all those officers at county level who are trying to misappropriate funds. I have already convened a meeting with the Public Accounts Committee of Kakamega County, and we are looking in depth on how the county government of Kakamega is spending the 110 million shillings allocated to fight this pandemic, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as I said earlier, it is the responsibility of both the national government and the county governments to cushion wananchis. Mr. Speaker, in the US, on 18th March, the US Parliament passed the first coronavirus aid package, which was signed into law, Mr. Speaker. In the UK, the Health Secretary came up with the emergency legislation, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, it is important for this committee to expedite the process of coming up with a legislation. And I want to call upon the National Assembly to quicken the process of passing this legislation, Mr. Speaker, so that we can have a legal framework and that harmonizes ways in which we are going to fight this virus. I was in support of us shortening the period of publication of the bill, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, a case in example is the Parliament of Ghana, Mr. Speaker. On 1st April, they had a proposal from the Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee, Mr. Speaker, which was adopted by Parliament, and on 2nd April, it was passed, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, it is our responsibility, Mr. Speaker, looking at other jurisdictions, let us quicken the passage of a legal framework that will give us clear direction on how we are going to handle these, such a situation, Mr. Speaker, both current and also futuristic. I support, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kihika.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also rise to support this motion by the ad hoc committee on COVID-19. And first, I would wish to really just congratulate them on the very good work that they've done in putting together the report, actually 2 reports, or coming up with them. From the kind, when you look at the report, the kind of work that they've done has been extremely thorough. And this has also been added onto by the discourse that has been going on in the country, within the senators, and you can see they've also gotten a lot from a lot of different stakeholders, but have also looked at what other jurisdictions or other countries are doing with this being a global pandemic. So I'm thankful for the work that they've done, and also the timing of that this work has been done. Because if these measures are taken early on, then we may be able to get our people saved from this pandemic, instead of really having a situation where we were not prepared when it really hits, and then a lot of people suffer from it. We've seen that in Italy, we've seen that in the US, and as we continue to see it, we become very concerned, because as an African country, or a country without as much, or as the level of resources cannot even compare to that of those first worlds, be they the Italies or the US, we can see what kind of a crisis this can be. So for the committee to have been able to come up with, to have done this sort of work, it will help cushion when hopefully we don't get there, but if in the eventuality that our numbers really rise, then we are prepared as a country. On the cash transfers, that is a very important direction to go, because as we know, if the pandemic does not, if the numbers really increase and there is a need to put a larger population in the country under quarantine, or to just lock down different counties or different cities, then we are truly going to be faced with the issues of providing for those who are not able to provide for themselves in the course of that specific time period. It may not be the case necessarily right now, because we are still operational in the up to 7 p.m. as a country, but it may come a time, and I hope that we don't get there, but it might be possible that that happens. So it's important, and just to add to that issue of the cash transfers, that maybe the committee can also look more into what became of the Huduma numbers, because we know those were able to map up the country a bit better than anything we've had before.
And so they would be able to know where really our very vulnerable populations are, so that when we have the cash transfers, they really go to those who need them. Clearly, the issue of food will come into play, be it providing for those who are not able to provide for themselves, or just having a shortage as the commodities become, the market forces lead to the commodities becoming a lot fewer than the population's needs. So that's also important. As we continue and as the committee continues, because I'm sure we are moving on to the bill progressively, it's also important to take into account a lot of the human rights issues that we are also seeing as this happens. I think most of us are familiar or saw in trending on social media a driver who had gone to a county and the trip had originated from Nairobi, and was talking about he's not sick, yet he's been told he's positive, yet he has not had any medications, but he seems fine and that sort of stuff. So it's important as we continue and as we get to a point where we really want to contain the pandemic, we also don't abuse human rights. And I think it's gotten a bit better from when we began as far as the lockdowns at 7 p.m., where we saw a lot of police using a lot of force. I believe, and it seems as though in the last few days or the last few weeks, that has gotten better. So we continue to monitor that so that we can be sure that as we continue to talk about what needs to be done to make sure that as a country we are prepared and we are okay, that also the rights of the people are not trampled on due to the pandemic. My time is up?
Your time is up.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support.
Professor Ongeri, then I will seek your intelligence because we have to adjourn at 5:30. Professor Ongeri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to be very clear. This is a pandemic, and a pandemic requires a robust approach and dealing with this kind of situation. We must look at the cause, the effect, and the consequences of this pandemic. The cause is the coronavirus. It's a virus which is virulent, which can attack, and if it goes to the extreme consequence, it can cause death. That's why you've seen massive deaths in some of these countries where this virus has not been properly controlled. And therefore, we have with all means as Kenyans to be able to stop this pandemic, because the virus, its course of determination is about 14 days. If we strictly follow the guidelines that have been given by the Ministry of Health and the government, we should be able to cut off this pandemic and stop it once and for all, decrease the intensity, and therefore it will not be able to spread from one person to another. That's step number one. If we don't do so, then what will be the effect? The effect that we'll be sick, the effect that will go to the lungs, it will cause problems, and therefore we'll have to bring in very expensive labor and professional groups with ventilators and other things to try and treat these people. That's the extreme end. We can avoid this level of action if we are only able to do the first basic element of prevention and being able to listen and do the right thing. Finally, what will be the consequences? We'll have massive death with the consequences of the economic collapse of this nation. And you have seen already there is a social collapse in the sense that people are not able to engage in their daily activities, which generate the economic livelihoods, because they live on a cash economy basis, and therefore they cannot be able to survive. My plea and my request to each and every one of us, we can stop this pandemic. We can stop it effectively by a clean, personal hygiene, hand washing, eating healthy foods. There are certain foods that are able to promote immunity, what we call the immune boosters. And there are local basic elements which have a very high level of vitamin C The vegetables, and we are very good, local vegetables are very high vitamins, the fruits that we take, and other products that we till in the land. The local native foods have a lot of these elements that will help us, including zinc, that also helps in the boosting up of the immunity. And therefore, this we can do, and they are available in our gardens. Why can't we do it? Number two, let's not joke, and particularly the young people. Please, 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 don't joke around as if there is some level of now new music coming up that you want to dance with and go this kind of social revelries that are going to cause havoc and difficulties for the societies. Therefore, I request them to be able to obey the curfew. It's for the general good and for the common good of the families. Finally, Mr. Speaker, there is now a new element that we've got to contend with, the psychosocial element. This element of stigma, I think we need to deal with it. Let me advise Kenyans that this coronavirus, if we follow the results within 14, maximum 21 days, it will be over and there will be no social stigma and everyone will be back to normal. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Ledama, 3 minutes, and Senator Mogeni will reply.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'll quickly go to the point. First, let me commend the committee for doing such a wonderful job. The recommendations, the observations are quite large, and I wonder when they are all going to be implemented. I want to go and maybe make some comments on the economic aspect. One which is very critical is on the cash transfers to the elders. We realized that yesterday there were text messages which were being sent out that you've received 8,000 shillings, and I wonder where the pastoralist communities will be able to receive this. So I'd like to request the committee to find a way that this can trickle down to the chiefs and to the ward administrators and the MCAs for them to be able to assist, identify all these elders who are supposed to benefit. Number two, we've just received a 411 that says that the COVID-19 fund has raised 1.2 billion shillings, including 10 million shillings from each of the media houses as part of the contribution. The issue of transparency is something that I have to emphasize, that it is important for us to understand. How is this money being spent? When you ask those questions, nobody wants to give you the answer. We are seeing different counties coming up with different plans. I think it is important for all these counties to be coordinated. Someone was asking yesterday, how come Machakos County is able to set up these hospitals in the stadium, and your county is not able to? We need, as a Senate, to know, how is this money being appropriated? I thought this was the house that will deal with the division of revenue and CARA in terms of all the counties, so that all counties can be able to have a concerted effort. And finally, Mr. Speaker, sir, this is a very important issue. A county like Narok has local borders and international borders. Tomorrow, I understand that the committee will be meeting with Matiang'i. It is important for us to understand how are they stopping the movements in international borders like Olpusumoru in Narok County, where traders are coming in, and we've seen the numbers in Tanzania are actually going up. So it is important that not only local borders are protected, but also those international borders which no one is talking about. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I commend the work which is done. I wish that KRA would then now find a way to work with local industries, like Keroche Brewery is an example. It's a company that has been beaten up. There are so many other local companies. This is the time that KRA should go in and sit down, because there are recommendations there of people waiving rent.
Your time is up, Senator Ledama. Senator Mogeni. Senator Gertrude Musulve, I'm sorry, we have to adjourn in the next 3 minutes.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir, as a member of the committee, I was given a task of saying something about the pandemic response and management bill, but I think time may not allow. Maybe I'll do that next time. But I wanted to respond to the issue that has been raised by my good friend, Senator for Narok. We had a meeting yesterday with the Minister for Labor, and Mr. Speaker, he did inform us that the SMS that is being sent to our senior citizens, about 8,000, is a backlog payment on money that is due to be paid to our senior citizens, the 2,000 shillings that is paid every 2 months. And Mr. Speaker, we did raise the issue of the danger that our senior citizens are being exposed to in terms of being told to go to banks and where there is a lot of crowding. In fact, Mr. Speaker, I raised a concern about what happened in Nyamira yesterday and in Keroka, where people were rained on because they were told to wait outside as they were being called one by one to receive the money. And we did agree with the minister, Mr. Speaker, that going forward, they should be paying these citizens maybe using the alphabetical order, those beginning with A up to B, maybe they go on Monday, C to D on Tuesday, so that we don't, have a situation where there is overcrowding in our banks. We did also agree, Mr. Speaker, with the minister that the registration of senior citizens, the payment of these citizens happened last 2 years ago, and that there is need to do another campaign for fresh registration. And he promised that in the next financial year in July, we should all remind our senior citizens that there would be fresh registration so that we can have more people becoming beneficiaries. On the issue of chiefs being involved and MCAs, Mr. Speaker, the CS informed us that the last time they tried involving chiefs, they were actually deducting money that was due to our senior citizens. Where somebody supposed to be paid 2,000, they were paying them 1,500 and deducting 5,000. So it did inform us that there is no any other form of payment they can use for now other than banks. But we did propose, Mr. Speaker, that going forward, they should use an M-Pesa way of payment so that we don't create a situation where people have to go to banks and queuing. I think my time is over.
Yeah.
Maybe next time, Mr. Speaker, I can get time.
You need to reply. You're supposed to reply.
I can, okay, I reply, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable senators, I now put the question. Wait. I now put the question, which is that the Senate notes the first and second progress report of the ad hoc committee on COVID-19 situation in Kenya laid on the table of the Senate on Tuesday, 14th April 2020. As manner of that opinion, say aye. As manner of a contrary view, say no. The ayes have it. Honorable senators, it's now 5:30 p.m. Time to interrupt the business of the Senate. The House therefore stands adjourned until Tuesday, 28 April 2020 at 2:30 p.m.